Chapter 1542. Me? Scared? Me? Scared? Ha ha ha! All of a sudden, Lunaticy laughed out loud. His laughter was filled with confidence. Longao, the most important thing is to know your place. Once you are arrogant, you won't even know how you died. Before Longao could react, Lunaticy's aura started to rise crazily. In just a few seconds, Lunaticy's aura had transformed into the aura of heaven and earth. Nirvana realm? Sensing Lunaticy's aura, Longao's face was filled with shock. In just an instant, Longao already knew what had happened. If there were no accidents, Man Yi himself was a Nirvana realm martial artist. However, due to the fact that he had to enter the purgatory of stars, he had no choice but to forcefully suppress his own realm. Ordinary people couldn't do such a thing. Longao didn't know that Lunaticy's actions were exactly the same as when Long Tian and Tong Zun entered the primordial battlefield. Star Purgatory, Nirvana realm martial artists couldn't enter the Gate of Stars. If they tried to force their way in, they would be killed by the Gate of Stars without any chance of survival. But once a Nirvana realm martial artist entered the Star Purgatory, they should be fine as long as they were careful. Longao didn't expect that Lunaticy wasn't a God Emperor martial artist, but a true Nirvana realm martial artist. Longao, do you still have the confidence to defeat me? Actually, he had completely transformed. The 5 Nirvana realms, from lowest to highest, were Heaven and Earth realm, Heaven and Man unity, Heaven and Earth realm, Nirvana realm, and Rebirth. When Lunaticy released the aura of Heaven and Earth, he didn't have a Heaven and Earth realm. This meant that Lunaticy's cultivation base had only broken through to Heaven and Man unity. Lin Fan was fearful. If he was a God Emperor martial artist, Longao wouldn't be worried at all. Because with his current strength, he could easily deal with a God Emperor martial artist without using the strength of his reincarnation avatar. But even if he was a Nirvana realm martial artist, Longao didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. Seeing that Longao didn't speak, Lunaticy laughed. Longao die. Nonsense. Longao was not prepared to meet force with Man Yi, so he turned around and left. With the help of spatial teleportation, Longao's figure quickly disappeared. Even Man Yi didn't expect this. Man Yi's cultivation base had already recovered. He originally thought that he would definitely be able to kill the other party. However, the other party's speed was too fast. The astral purgatory was vast and boundless. Trying to find traces of a person in the boundless purgatory of stars was simply like trying to find a needle in the ocean. Unless Longao showed himself. But was it possible? Looking coldly at the direction Longao disappeared in, Lunaticy did not chase after him. Now, the 10 people of the Divine Island had all fallen, and he was the only one left. All of their hopes had fallen on him. The most important purpose of entering the astral purgatory this time was to find the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Tao. If he delayed the search for the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Tao because of Longao, then the gains would not make up for the losses. As for the life and death of the 10 people, Lunaticy didn't care at all. Because this time, the Divine Island had spent a lot of effort to forcefully suppress his cultivation base to the Divine Emperor realm in order to ensure that nothing would go wrong. If he could find the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Tao, he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice 10 people. Because of this, Lunaticy didn't continue to chase after Longao, but went towards the center of the astral purgatory. Lunaticy had just disappeared, but Longao quietly appeared with a dignified look. Lunaticy had forcefully suppressed his strength to enter the astral purgatory. It was almost impossible for him to kill a Nirvana realm martial artist. Strength, what he needed the most now was still strength. Longao knew that if his cultivation base could break through and comprehend the heaven and earth, then Lunaticy wouldn't leave. However, Longao didn't continue to dwell on it. Instead, he also went towards the center of the astral purgatory. In order to ensure that nothing would go wrong in the astral purgatory this time, Lunaticy didn't just hurry on his way, he also killed the people of the 3 major islands. In front of a Nirvana realm martial artist, none of the 18 divine emperors of the 3 major islands could survive. All of them were killed by lunatic E. Including Longao, there were more than 30 people from the 4 major islands who entered the astral purgatory. However, in less than 3 days, there were only 2 people left. One was lunatic E, and the other was Longao. In the center of the astral purgatory, there was a medium-sized island surrounded by the sea. The environment was extremely beautiful. Longao, long time no see. How have you been? When the 2 of them met outside the island, they weren't surprised at all. Because the 2 of them entered the astral purgatory this time to look for the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. The exact location of the Martial Dao Peak inheritance was in the center of the astral purgatory, which was the nameless island in front of them. It had been 5 days since the 2 of them separated and met here again. In other words, there were less than 25 days left before the 1 month in the astral purgatory. Ha ha ha, Longao, you don't have to be afraid. At this time, I won't do anything to you. Wait until I obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. At that time, I will slowly torture you. At that time, you will know what is worse than death. As soon as he finished speaking, Lunatic E didn't continue to hesitate. He flew into the sky and instantly disappeared into the island. Longao shrugged helplessly. Although his strength wasn't as strong as Lunatic E, he wasn't afraid at all. He was only 1 step away from the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. As long as he could find the Heart of Stars, he would be able to obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. It seemed that Lunatic E still didn't know about the Heart of Stars. In other words, no matter how hard Lunatic E tried, he wouldn't be able to obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. Because of this, Longao wasn't worried at all. In the remaining 25 days, he just needed to slowly search for the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. Longao also didn't hesitate and quickly headed towards the island in front of him. On the island, there were ancient towering trees all around, covering the sky and the sun. After entering the island, Longao became incomparably dignified. Although Tianqin didn't say it, according to Xiling, the center of the astral purgatory was the most dangerous place in the entire astral purgatory. If he wasn't careful, he would be doomed eternally. As expected. As soon as he stepped onto the island, Longao didn't even have time to observe the situation around him. A red tide had already appeared around him. Longao, let's work together first. When we find the Martial Dao Peak inheritance, we'll rely on our own abilities. What do you think? They were surrounded by countless blood-red spiders. These blood-red spiders didn't have the slightest cultivation level and were just like ordinary spiritual beasts. However, both Longao and Lunatic E could clearly sense the powerful aura release from these blood-red spiders. The surrounding blood-colored spiders were densely packed. With one glance, even Longao felt his scalp go numb. Without the slightest hesitation, Longao nodded and agreed. Because the situation was very critical, it was very difficult for him to deal with the surrounding blood spiders by himself. The 2 of them merged together as fast as they could and began to counterattack the blood spiders from the left and right. Longao, there are too many blood-red spiders. If this goes on, we'll definitely die. What do you want? Longao's face was also very gloomy because there were too many blood-red spiders around them. Looking at the situation, the number of blood-red spiders was still increasing. Who knew how many blood-red spiders there were? Even if there weren't any extra blood-red spiders, just this number alone was enough to take their lives. Longao, let's use our strongest move. I've already sensed that the blood-red spiders are the weakest on the left side. Only then can we leave safely. No problem. Under such circumstances, the 2 of them had already decided to put aside their grudges. The most important thing was to leave this place first. Longao didn't have the slightest doubt because his death wouldn't benefit Lunatic E at all. Only by joining forces could they forcefully break open a path and leave. As a Nirvana realm martial artist, Lunatic E's strongest move was definitely the Qi of Heaven and Earth. After all, the Qi of Heaven and Earth condensed by Longao couldn't be compared to his. The power wasn't on the same level. Under such circumstances, Lunaticy didn't hold back. Not only Lunaticy, but even Longao also didn't hold back. However, among the many martial skills, Longao only chose Sorrow of Heaven and Earth. The terrifying Chi Vortex, in addition to the martial skill released by Lunaticy and the Chi of Heaven and Earth, this kind of power was enough to sweep away 1,000 soldiers. It directly started to move towards the left side. The blood-red spiders didn't seem to be afraid of death. They were like moths to a flame. One after another, they continuously attacked the two of them. The Chi Vortex was like a bulldozer. Wherever it passed, all the blood-red spiders were turned into ashes. Seeing this situation, the two of them were delighted at the same time. They didn't dare to have the slightest hesitation. The two of them quickly moved towards the left side at their fastest speed. However, the two of them still underestimated the siege of the blood-red spiders. Lunaticy originally thought that the left side was the place where the number of spiders was the weakest. He never thought that the place where they thought the number of spiders was the weakest would be attacked by an even more terrifying divine beast. The blood-red mantises were also densely packed. The two of them cursed at the same time. They looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. The two of them never thought that after the blood-red spiders, there would be an endless number of blood-red mantises. If this continued, when would they reach the end? Even though they were extremely depressed, the two of them still continued to use various big moves to force the surrounding blood-red mantises to stay outside. They didn't let a single one of them get close to them. Otherwise, if they were careless, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Lunaticy continued to sense. Chapter 1543. Without needing Longao to say anything, Lunaticy had already begun to sense. The situation was critical. It could be said to be hanging by a thread. Longao, we're in big trouble. Hearing Lunaticy's words, Longao's heart skipped a beat. He asked, "What's going on?" "I've already sensed it. There's no weakness in the surrounding blood-colored mantises." If that was the case, things were really troublesome. Longao had already tried. He didn't know if the island had changed the spatial fluctuations, but he couldn't enter the dragon seal space at all. Since they couldn't sense any weakness, the two could only fight with all their might. Because both of them knew very well that if they were careless, they would be killed by the blood-colored mantises. The two of them found a problem. The blood-colored spiders and blood-colored mantises didn't invade each other. In other words, when the two of them entered the blood-colored mantises' camp, none of the blood-colored spiders stepped in. There was a tiger roar. At this moment, a black figure suddenly appeared. "Big brother, I'm here to help you." After devouring the power, Long Ming's cultivation had increased greatly. Now, he had officially broken through the Peak God Emperor realm. He was only one step away from the Nirvana realm. Long Ming belonged to the dark attribute Divine Beast. As soon as he appeared, he swept away thousands of troops. But before Longao could react, a terrifying power suddenly descended from the surroundings, directly suppressing and even imprisoning Long Ming. Forbidden power! Feeling this imprisoning power, whether it was Longao or Lunaticy, both of them exclaimed at the same time. Forbidden power, a power unique to peak martial Dao powerhouses. Longao and Lunaticy never thought that the forbidden power would suddenly descend at this time. Longao was very clear about the power of the forbidden power. Not to mention a God Emperor, even a Nirvana rebirth powerhouse couldn't resist the killing power of the forbidden power. Although he didn't know what had happened, Longao could still be sure that because of Long Ming's sudden appearance, it caused the forbidden power to imprison. He didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. Longao and Long Ming's relationship was very strange. If an ordinary divine beast was imprisoned by the forbidden power, they would definitely die. Except for Longao. With a thought, Long Ming's figure suddenly disappeared. Eh? Between heaven and earth, a surprised voice suddenly sounded, and then disappeared. Longao and Madman Yi were both shocked. The two looked at each other, and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Neither of them knew who the person who had just let out a cry of surprise was. Could it be the expert at the peak of martial arts who had sent down the taboo power? Man, you might not know, but it was impossible for Longao not to know. The owner of the astral purgatory was Tianchun. Could it be that Tianchun was the one who exclaimed just now? Not likely. Before the two of them could continue to think, the crimson mantises around them began to attack. Wave after wave, the waves were endless and dense. At a glance, it was a sea of crimson red, like a sea of blood. As the saying went, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Even if the two of them were strong, it was impossible for them to deal with it continuously. The crimson mantises were endless, but their strength was limited. They could only hold on for a few hours, but could they hold on forever? If this situation continued, the two of them would definitely die. Self-created martial arts technique, Heaven and Earth Sorrow. Longao kept activating Heaven and Earth Sorrow, and his whole body was sucked into the vortex of airflow. At this time, if Longao chose to give up on Man Yi, then if there were no accidents, Man Yi's chances of survival would be less than 0. However, Longao would not make trouble for himself. If things went smoothly, he would definitely not save him. However, there were crimson mantises all around, and crimson spiders in the distance were eyeing covetously. One more person meant one more strength. Longao, I have to admit that below the Nirvana realm, you are the strongest. Although he was unwilling to admit it, Man Yi could still feel Longao's strength. If it were not for the absolute gap between their realms, Man Yi would even think that even he seemed to be no match for Longao. Man Yi, the crimson mantises around, including the crimson spiders, are not real existences. Longao did not have the slightest bit of nonsense. He really couldn't figure out that the situation was so critical, and Man Yi could still say such nonsense. If it weren't for the threat of the crimson mantises and the crimson spiders, he believed that by now, they would have already fought. At that time, it would be either you die or I die, so what's the point of saying more nonsense? The most important thing now was to leave here. Not real existences? What do you mean? He seemed to be a little confused because Man Yi had already sensed that the crimson mantises around were all powerful existences at the level of divine beasts. As for what realm they were at, even he seemed to be unable to sense it. Whether it is the crimson spiders or the crimson mantises, there is no indication of their realm. If my guess is correct, the crimson mantises and the crimson spiders around are all formed by some kind of power, and are not real divine beasts. He was taken aback. However, Man Yi did not have the slightest doubt because he knew very well that Longao had no need to fool him. If this was the case, the situation seemed to be more troublesome. They were not real divine beasts, but formed by some kind of power. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed it even if he was beaten to death. This kind of remarkable ability could only be achieved by experts at the pinnacle of martial arts. He believed that even Nirvana realm experts could not do it. Then what should we do now? If they are real divine beasts, we won't be able to escape this time. If they are formed by power, I have a way, but you and I have to make a blood oath. Before we see the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts, either of us is allowed to attack or assassinate each other. If we violate the blood oath, we will never be able to leave the purgatory of stars. How about it? If there was no such thing, he believed that Man Yi would definitely not agree. However, the situation now was different. If he did not agree, only death would await. It was precisely because of this that Man Yi did not even think about it. He did not even hesitate in the slightest as he nodded and agreed. Okay. Immediately after, Longao and Man Yi both made a blood oath at the same time. Only at this moment did the two of them let out a sigh of relief. After making the blood oath, the two of them did not have to worry about being attacked, or even assassinated at all times. Although it was under such circumstances, the two of them were very afraid. No matter what, the two of them were like fire and water. If they did not make a blood oath, once they seized the opportunity, no matter if it was Longao or Man Yi, they would not hesitate to attack. The path of searching for the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts was full of danger. If they schemed against each other, only death would await them. It was better to temporarily cooperate and compete for the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts based on their own abilities. Chapter 1544. Longao, can you tell me what we should do now? Man Yu was actually very unhappy in his heart. As a Nirvana realm martial artist and the #1 genius of the mythical island, he was usually high and mighty. When had he ever acted like this? Compromising with the enemy was simply a disgrace. An enormous disgrace. Even if he was extremely helpless and angry, even if he was unhappy, Man Yu was very clear that he had no other choice in this situation. No matter what, he had to protect his own life first. Secondly, he had to try his best to find the inheritance of the peak of martial Tao while preserving his life. According to my guess, these blood-colored spiders and blood-colored mantises are formed by the blood-colored energy, and the power of lightning is their nemesis. So what? Man Yu was extremely depressed. Man Yu was very helpless. Even if that was the case, where could he find the power of lightning at this time? Whether it was him or Longao, neither of them cultivated lightning. It was equivalent to not saying anything. Regarding what Man Yu was thinking in his heart, how could Longao not know? He sneered in his heart. Although we don't have the power of lightning, I have another method that requires your help. Speak. After swearing a blood oath, Longao wasn't worried that Man Yu would sneak attack him, or even assassinate him. Unless Man Yu didn't want to leave the astral purgatory. I need your help, said Yi Futian. No problem. Longao prepared to use the 5 elements devouring art. Ever since he obtained the 2 primal chaos stone tablets, Longao had comprehended 2 sets of martial skills from them. One was the 5 elements heaven devouring art, and the other was the firmament devouring art. Longao had already calculated that whether it was the firmament devouring art or the 5 elements heaven devouring art, they could deal with the surrounding blood-colored mantises and spiders. However, Longao still prepared to use the 5 elements heaven devouring art and not the firmament devouring art. The reason was simple. Longao was very clear that once he used the firmament devouring art, who knew how much power he would need to devour? With his strength, if he devoured too much, there would only be one result. He would be devoured by the power, and even explode. The 5 elements heaven devouring art was different. The biggest weakness of using the 5 elements heaven devouring technique was that Longao's mastery of the 5 elements heaven devouring technique was not very deep. It was because of this that he needed Man Yu's help. The next moment. In order to leave this place as soon as possible, Man Yu went all out this time. The 5 elements heaven swallowing art consisted of the power of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Longao had already calculated that if he combined the power of the 5 elements, he would definitely be able to deal with the surrounding blood-red spiders and blood-red mantises. The power of 5 colors. What kind of martial skill is this? Man Yu could clearly sense that the martial skill Longao was using was extremely powerful. Even he was afraid of it. The vortex had already disappeared. Just as Longao had guessed, although the 5 elements heaven devouring incantation had not been cultivated to the extreme, as a powerful martial technique within the primal chaos stone tablet, its might could be imagined. The power of the 5 elements was the most powerful force in the world. The devouring power of the firmament devouring incantation and the power of the 5 elements heaven devouring incantation were equally powerful. All the surrounding blood-red mantises seemed to be afraid of the power of the 5 elements. In less than a few minutes, the power of the 5 elements had forcibly opened a path in front of them. Seeing this situation, Man Yu was delighted. The 2 of them did not hesitate, and immediately shot forward because the blood-red mantises behind them were still crazily rushing forward like moths to a flame. The 2 of them were very fast. In a short while, they had already completely escaped the encirclement of the blood-red mantises. Whether it was the blood-red mantises or the blood-red spiders, they would not spread and would only move in their own camp. Seeing that the blood-red mantises behind them did not chase after them, both Longao and Man Yi let out a long sigh of relief. Longao, thank you for this time. However, the grudge between you and me will not be written off. Longao had an indifferent expression. In Longao's opinion, even if Man Yi was a Nirvana realm martial artist, so what? Even if they left the star purgatory, with his spatial teleportation and dragon seal space, it would be difficult for the deity island to catch him. Emo smiled. Longao, I clearly distinguish between kindness and hatred. I will remember this matter in my heart. I will not deal with you in the star purgatory. As for leaving the star purgatory, your life and death will depend on your luck. When the time comes, I will report this matter to the deity island. If the deity island wants to deal with you, I will not be merciful. Longao appreciated Man Yi's attitude. Man Yi, we will settle our grudge after leaving the star purgatory. However, if we want to find the peak martial Dao inheritance now, I am afraid it will be very dangerous. You and I will temporarily join hands. When we find the peak martial Dao inheritance, we will compete with our own ability. No problem. In just a moment, the two of them reached an agreement. The two of them stopped for a while. About 10 minutes later, they immediately got up and continued to walk forward. The entire island did not look big. However, when the two of them stepped on the island, they had a feeling that this so-called island was probably endless. Moreover, they did not know what dangers lay ahead. They could only take one step at a time. Carefully, they raised their spirits. Chi-chi, chi-chi, chi-chi-chi, chi-chi-chi-chi. At this moment, a strange sound suddenly came from the southeast. It was very ear-piercing and even had a kind of ability to disturb one's mind. What was it? Could it be the heaven-devouring python? What is it? Man Yi fiercely swallowed his saliva and said with a sigh, Longao, you have a plan. In our external sea, there is a legend that the heaven-devouring python's strength is comparable to a divine dragon. However, many years ago, the heaven-devouring python was already extinct. It should not be the heaven-devouring python. Before Man Yi could finish his words, the sizzling sound was getting closer and closer. In the next moment, an incomparably huge python suddenly appeared. The entire python was dozens of meters long and as thick as 20 people. It looked like 5 incomparably huge hills that were constantly moving. Damn, it is indeed the heaven-devouring python. The Nirvana divine beast, the heaven-devouring python. Although it was only a heaven-devouring python that had comprehended the heaven and earth, Longao was very clear in his heart that even Man Yi beside him was not a match for the heaven-devouring python. Longao and Man Yi were extremely depressed. An originally extinct divine beast had actually appeared here. Moreover, it was a Nirvana realm heaven-devouring python. It was probably not an easy task for the two of them to dodge the attack of the heaven-devouring python. What should they do? Chapter 1545. The heaven-devouring python was a Nirvana divine beast that had comprehended heaven and earth. Man Yi, I'll be counting on you for this battle. Longao knew that with his strength, it was impossible to defeat the heaven-devouring python. He nodded. Man Yi also knew that the situation was critical. Without any hesitation, he took a big stride forward and rushed out. Before he arrived, the terrifying aura of heaven and earth had already suppressed him. In the 5 Nirvana realms, only by breaking through the unity of heaven and man could one condense the heaven and earth domain. In other words, whether it was Man Yi or the heaven-devouring python, both of them had comprehended heaven and earth Nirvana realms. At the same time, they released the aura of heaven and earth and collided together. As expected, Man Yi's strength was still inferior to the heaven-devouring python. Roar! A furious roar resounded. The heaven-devouring python was like a mad lion. It began to attack Man Yi in a frenzy. Wave after wave of attacks were like monstrous waves that surged into the sky. The man and the python had already begun a fierce battle. Seeing this situation, as the battle continued to escalate, the one who would lose would definitely be Man Yi. Longao didn't stand still and watch the show. With a big stride, Longao's body also rushed out. Innate ability, Dragon Roar. When the dragon roar sounded, the surrounding space also changed. Although Man Yi didn't know how Longao did it, he wouldn't easily choose to give up this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The two of them joined forces, one on the left and one on the right. The heaven-devouring python fiercely swung towards Longao. The strength of the giant tail could be imagined. Once hit, no matter how strong Longao's defense was, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. "I'll tear you into pieces." It was normal for a Nirvana divine beast to speak human language. One had to admit that the heaven-devouring python's strength was too strong. Even if the two of them joined forces, they couldn't defeat the heaven-devouring python. Not only that. As the battle continued to escalate, the two of them gradually discovered that the heaven-devouring python's physical defense was very strong. It was too difficult to break the heaven-devouring python's physical defense. "Longao, if this continues, we will suffer a great loss." Longao nodded. How could he not know what Man Yi meant? However, in the face of such a powerful Nirvana divine beast, it was already very good that he could protect himself, let alone kill the heaven-devouring python. What should he do? No matter if it was Longao or Man Yi, they were all extremely solemn. The sky-devouring python's attack speed was getting faster and faster. Its huge tail kept swinging back and forth. Neither Longao nor Man Yi could get close to it. "Big brother, let me help you." "Absolutely not." Hearing Long Chang's words, Longao couldn't wait to refuse. Long Chang had already made his move just now, but he was directly imprisoned by the forbidden power. Longao was almost certain that as long as Long Chang appeared, there was no need for him to make a move. He believed that he would be imprisoned by the forbidden power again. Long Chang couldn't make a move, so Long Chang couldn't appear either. Long Chang had already told Longao the general situation regarding the heaven-devouring python. After hearing that, Longao also sighed endlessly. Once the heaven-devouring python transformed into a heaven-devouring divine dragon, even the 9 firmaments divine dragon of the dragon tribe wouldn't be a match for the heaven-devouring divine dragon unless the primordial divine dragon made a move personally. Longao never thought that the heaven-devouring python's origin would be so powerful. Fortunately, the heaven-devouring python hadn't transformed into a heaven-devouring divine dragon yet. Otherwise, he and Man Yi wouldn't even have a chance to fight back. Even so, the two of them didn't have a high chance of winning. As the battle continued to escalate and become more and more dangerous, the two of them gradually couldn't hold on any longer. They kept retreating while the heaven-devouring python chased after them. Fight! Of course, Longao didn't want to die. If this continued, there would only be one outcome. Whether it was him or Man Yi, they would both be destroyed by the heaven-devouring python. Since that was the case, he might as well give it a try. Time circle technique. With the help of the dragon's roar, the heaven-devouring python's speed was locked down forcefully. Even though Man Yi didn't know what Longao was going to do, he still increased the intensity of his attacks. Even though Man Yi's strength wasn't a match for the heaven-devouring python, he was still a Nirvana state martial artist after all. His strength was there for all to see. Under the combination of the two of them, coupled with the increasing intensity of Man Yi's attacks, the heaven-devouring python had no choice but to attack Man Yi with all his might. Gradually, he neglected Longao. With that, Longao was elated. Seemed like his chance had arrived. Reincarnation Heavenly Eye opened. Suddenly, 2 black beams of light shot out from Longao's eyes, piercing right into the mind of the heaven-devouring python. Roar! A blood-curdling scream rang out. The heaven-devouring python had never imagined that a puny god emperor could actually injure his soul. If his soul had evolved into a primordial spirit, even Longao wouldn't be able to injure the heaven-devouring python's soul even if he used the reincarnation Heavenly Eye. However, the heaven-devouring python had always been at the heaven and earth realm, and hadn't broken through to the Nirvana Fate realm. But now that he thought about it, if the heaven-devouring python's cultivation base had already reached the Nirvana Fate realm, Longao and Man Yi wouldn't have been able to hold on for so long. Man Yi, hurry up and attack! We only have one chance! One had to admit that the reincarnation heavenly eye was extremely powerful. After all, the difference in cultivation base between Longao and the heaven-devouring python was huge. If it weren't for Man Yi attracting all of the heaven-devouring python's soul, Longao wouldn't have been able to injure the heaven-devouring python's soul. Not only that, the slightest carelessness would have resulted in a backlash from the heaven-devouring python. At that time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. No matter what, Longao's reincarnation heavenly eye had succeeded in attacking the heaven-devouring python. Man Yi and Longao didn't give up on this opportunity. They attacked with all their might, not giving the heaven-devouring python any chance to recover. Longao, use your strongest move! We only have one chance! Man Yi was also shocked when he saw the martial skill that Longao had just used. As he continued to interact with Longao, he also realized that Longao's strength wasn't as simple as it seemed. Although he was only at the hierarch realm, his true strength was above that of a peak god emperor. He could even fight against a martial artist who had comprehended the heaven and earth realm. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have found it hard to believe. However, under such circumstances, Man Yi couldn't care about anything else. After leaving the star purgatory, he must kill Longao and eliminate the root of the problem. Man Yi wouldn't cause any trouble for himself and the Deity Island. After all, Longao was too unpredictable. Who knew if he would grow up to deal with the Deity Island and himself in the future? Man Yi and Longao attacked with all their might, each using their strongest move. Longao chose the Destruction Seal among the many killer moves. The two joined forces and attacked the heaven-devouring python with all their might. The heaven-devouring python's furious roar resounded through the heaven and earth. Chapter 1546. Even so. Because the heaven-swallowing python's physical defense was too strong, even if it was attacked by the two, its defense couldn't be broken. Seeing this situation, the two of them were shocked. Such a physical defense was a little too strong, wasn't it? Longao and Man Yi looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Continue to attack, don't give the heaven-swallowing python the slightest chance to breathe. Nodding. How could Longao not know what Man Yi said? Even if the heaven-swallowing python's physical defense was strong, but after receiving their continuous attacks, he believed that it was seriously injured. Continuing to attack at this time was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The two's speed soared to the extreme, one punch after another, the fist shadows were endless. The heaven-swallowing python looked like it was dying. As long as the two continued to attack, the heaven-swallowing python would only have a dead end. Emperor Dragon 9 Fatal Blow. Emperor Dragon Raging Waves, Emperor Dragon Buries the Sky, Emperor Dragon Strangulation, Emperor Dragon Overbearing, Emperor Dragon Collapses, Emperor Dragon Explodes, Emperor Dragon Heart Devours, Emperor Dragon Breaks the Firmament. After 3 rounds, the heaven-swallowing python was directly beaten to the ground. It breathed in less and breathed out less. Looking at the dying heaven-swallowing python, the two finally breathed a sigh of relief. With a surprised face, Man Yi said with a smile, Longao, I hope you can help me. What do you mean? The heaven-swallowing python is on the verge of death. As long as I make a move now, the probability of subduing the heaven-swallowing python is very high. So that's it. Longao sneered in his heart. Although he was temporarily cooperating with Man Yi, it didn't mean that they were friends. Man Yi was a Nirvana realm martial artist. If he subdued the heaven-swallowing python, who could be his opponent in the world? Longao knew that the enmity between him and the mythical island had reached a point where it was either you die or I die. Even if he didn't find trouble with the mythical island, he believed that the mythical island wouldn't let it go. In this case, helping Man Yi subduing the heaven-swallowing python, wouldn't it be looking for trouble? Man Yi, you and I are not friends but enemies. Temporarily cooperating is just to deal with the current danger. There was no surprise. Nor was there any trace of anger. If Longao agreed without hesitation, Man Yu would find it strange. Longao, what is the meaning of this? You and I will rely on our own abilities. No matter who subdues the heaven-devouring python, we are not allowed to attack each other. How about that? If it was outside, would Man Yu agree? However, things had already come to this. Even if Man Yu was very unhappy in his heart, he could only agree. Neither of them made a move immediately. He stared at the dying heaven-devouring python in front of him quietly. Both of them were very clear that this attack had to hit the target. Otherwise, if they missed the opportunity, the other person would take advantage of it for nothing. The next moment, Longao and Man Yu's bodies moved at the same time. If they had the help of spatial teleportation, even if Man Yu's level was higher than Longao's, his speed would still be far inferior. But even so, Longao's speed was about the same as Man Yu's. The two of them arrived in front of the heaven-devouring python at the same time. If they wanted to subdue the heaven-devouring python, the first thing they had to do was to erode the heaven-devouring python's divine soul and make the heaven-devouring python submit itself. The only thing the two of them were worried about was that the heaven-devouring python was unwilling to submit. Once it chose to self-destruct its body or even its divine soul, no matter who it was, they would be instantly destroyed. The consequences would be unimaginable. The two of them did not attack each other. They had not found the inheritance of the peak of martial arts, and had already encountered so many dangers. Who knew if there would be other dangers in the future? With one more person, they would have more power. The two of them seemed to have a tacit understanding. The two of them began to attack the heaven-devouring python's divine soul. Whoever dealt with the divine soul first would be able to subdue the heaven-devouring python. You want to subdue me with just the two of you? Even if I die, I will not fulfill your wish. Indefinite divine ring. At this time, Man Yu finally used the supreme divine weapon of the island, the indefinite divine ring. Before Longao could react, Man Yu used the indefinite divine ring to cover the divine soul. No matter how the heaven-devouring python roared in anger, Man Yu was pleasantly surprised and did not hesitate at all. Letting out a sigh, retreating dozens of steps, Longao helplessly shrugged his shoulders. Although he was somewhat unwilling in his heart, the matter had already happened and there was no other way to salvage it. Longao never imagined that Man Yu would have such a powerful divine weapon in his hands. Before he could react, Man Yu had already used the divine weapon to subdue the heaven-devouring python's divine soul. If there were no accidents, Man Yu would definitely be able to subdue the heaven-devouring python. No matter how hard he tried, there would only be one final result, and that was to no avail. If that was the case, why should he waste his time? As expected. If it was the heaven-devouring python at its peak, even if Man Yu used the indefinite divine ring, it would still be impossible to subdue the heaven-devouring python. However, the current situation was completely different. The heaven-devouring python's strength was not even 1/10 of its peak, so how could it resist the indefinite divine ring? In just a few minutes, Man Yu had already successfully subdued the heaven-devouring python. His face could not conceal his pleasant surprise as he said with a smile, "Many thanks to you this time. Let's hurry up. At this rate, it will be very difficult for us to find the Martial Dao Peak inheritance within a month." A total of 7 days had passed since they entered the Purgatory of Stars. There were less than 23 days left. Time flew by. If they couldn't find an inheritance that was at the pinnacle of the Martial Dao in the remaining time, they would be directly teleported out of the Purgatory of Stars. If that was the case, wouldn't their trip to the Purgatory of Stars this time be in vain? Longao was also very clear that even if he possessed the nameless martial skill, it would not be an easy task to obtain the Heart of Stars. Tianchen had set up this trap. It would be strange if it was so easy to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance. Alright, let's continue our journey. After successfully subduing the heaven-devouring python, Man Yi had already thought it through. Even if he was unlucky and could not obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance, this trip would not be in vain. After all, he had subdued the heaven-devouring python and his strength had instantly skyrocketed. In terms of comprehending the heaven and earth, no one could be his opponent. The two of them were still very careful. They were fully alert as they walked step by step, advancing step by step. After walking for a short distance, they had already encountered a blood-red spider, a blood-red praying mantis, and a heaven-devouring python. The two of them were very fearful because they did not know what dangers they would encounter next. As the two of them walked slowly, they arrived in front of a stone tablet in about 10 minutes. The huge black stone tablet was like a huge mirror. Chapter 1547. There's no way out. There was only a stone stele in front of the two of them. The surrounding roads were all sealed. They couldn't move forward, nor could they retreat. The two of them looked at the stone stele in front of them. They knew very well that things weren't that simple. There was definitely something fishy. There are words. Following Madman Ye's finger, Longao saw 3 words suddenly appear on the left side of the stone stele. Heart Devil Stele. Could the stone stele in front of them be the so-called Heart Devil Stele? Whether it was Longao or Madman Ye, they didn't know what the so-called Heart Devil Stele was. But in the next moment, the two of them instantly stopped moving as if they had entered a meditative state. Their divine souls entered the black space at the same time. The black air around them surged. Longhausher, Long Yi and his wife, second uncle, third uncle, fourth uncle, big brother, second brother, third brother, Yuan, Aoshue, Bailing, and even Xiling and Long Fu appeared one by one. They were somewhat shocked. Longao couldn't figure out why his family, his lover, would suddenly appear here. Heart Devil Stele, Heart Devil Stele, could this be the so-called Heart Devil Stele? Looking at the people in front of him, Longao was unusually calm. Because he had already guessed what the so-called Heart Devil Stele was. As expected. Before Longao could do anything, the people in front of him suddenly began to kill each other. Kill each other. Longhausher killed Yuan, Oshue killed Long Yi, second uncle killed third uncle, and fourth uncle killed Bailing. It was a mess. Although he knew that everything in front of him was fake, Longao still couldn't help but look at the situation. This kind of thing, not to mention Longao, no matter who it was, they wouldn't be able to bear it. Ah! With a painful roar, Longao's body exploded with a cold, murderous aura. Like a whirlwind, it swept over fiercely. In the next moment, everyone disappeared. Somewhat dumbfounded, Longao's murderous aura disappeared and the people who had just disappeared appeared again. The situation was exactly the same. Everyone was still killing each other. You kill me, I kill you. It was just killing, but they couldn't kill each other. Longao continued to attack, and everyone continued to disappear. Just like that, the cycle repeated several times. Coldly looking at everything before him, Longao was almost certain that this was the so-called illusory realm. The biggest reason for this was because of the mental demon stele. Brother Long, save me, save me! Aoer, save me, save me! Seventh brother, save me, save me! Seventh brother, save me, save me! Master, save me, save me! At this moment, everyone shouted at the same time. Every one of them was dripping with blood and looked terrible. His heart was bleeding, as if a knife had pierced his heart. It would be impossible for him to not be moved by this. Longao's speed soared to the extreme. At the beginning, Longao always knew that everything in front of him was fake. Once he fell for it, the consequences would be unimaginable. If he couldn't stop, he would definitely die. However, as Longao's state of mind began to change, Longao was gradually eroded by the mental demon, and the erosion was getting worse and worse. Pooh! Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Longao's body began to sway. His face was extremely pale. Being eroded by the mental demon, Longao was seriously injured in just a few minutes. He was shocked. He immediately closed his eyes and his divine soul began to cover his entire body. Until now, Longao's body was still covered in cold sweat. If it wasn't for some mysterious force eroding him, he believed that he would have died. The mental demon's steel borrowed the power of the mental demon to erode one's mind. Such an attack was impossible to guard against. Longao's physical defense was extremely strong. Even if it was a peak god emperor, or even Man and Yi, they might not be able to break through Longao's physical defense in the shortest time. Only the mental demon was not afraid of physical defense. It could directly penetrate the body and erode the mind. In this case, even Longao would not be able to withstand it. Longao tried to communicate with the dragon seal, but helplessly found that the spatial fluctuations in this mysterious space were severely disrupted. Not to mention entering the dragon seal space, it was impossible to even communicate with Xiling and Long Fu. Without his physical body, how could his divine soul withstand the erosion and attack of the mental demon? If his physical body was here, Longao had full confidence that even if he was attacked and eroded by the mental demon, he wouldn't be so seriously injured in such a short time. Longao cursed in his heart. Even though he closed his eyes, there were still countless scenes in his mind. They were still his family and his lover killing each other. It was very cruel. If this continued, it would not be a solution. Longao was very clear that he had to deal with it as soon as possible. Because once the mental demon invaded his divine soul, even the divine mathematician would not be able to save him. Not only that. Once the mental demon invaded his divine soul, not only would he die, he would not even have the chance to enter the path of reincarnation. This was the horror of the mental demon. This was the horror of not having a physical body. Until now, Longao still couldn't figure out what was going on. Why would his physical body and divine soul be separated? He still didn't know where his physical body was. But the most important thing now was to resist the mental demon and crush it. Firmament devouring art. A huge black vortex appeared behind Longao and began to devour the mental demon's erosion around him. Longao was just trying it out. But when he used the firmament devouring art, he found that it was really useful. The images that appeared were being devoured by the firmament devouring art. Longao was temporarily freed. Looking at the images that were still appearing in front of him, his eyes started to turn cold again. The murderous aura on his body intensified. For words, a murderous aura. Although the firmament devouring art alone could devour the images in the distance were still multiplying. Longao was very clear that once he stopped using the firmament devouring art, he would undoubtedly be eroded by the mental demon again. If this continued, it would not be a solution. Innate ability, Dragon's Roar. At the same time as the dragon roar sounded, Longao continued to use his time sure kill technique. But even so, the erosion of the inner demons and the scenes of mutual slaughter still did not stop. In other words, whether it was the innate magical ability or the time sure kill technique, it was useless. Longao cursed again. He didn't stop because he had to buy time. The longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. Racing against time, Longao directly used the destruction seal. The result was the same. It was useless. Apart from the firmament devouring art, Longao used all kinds of sure kill arts and martial skills, but they were all useless. This result made Longao very depressed. What kind of place was this? Why was the mental demon so strong? Chapter 1548. It was a race against time. He didn't dare to waste any time. When Longao didn't know what to do, a black shadow suddenly shot out of his dantian. It was the Samsara disc, the most precious treasure of the Samsara clan. When Longao got the Samsara disc by accident, he tried countless methods but still couldn't open it. Why did the Samsara disc appear at this time? The Samsara disc came in front of Longao and began to spin rapidly. As it spun faster and faster, the Samsara disc suddenly turned into a black divine sword. I wanted to give you the Samsara sword after your cultivation reached the starry sky realm. Since you woke up in advance, I'll give it to you now. The Samsara sword? Of course, Longao knew who the person who spoke in his mind was. He was shocked. Because in here, he was unable to sense even Long Fu and Purple Spirit. Only the mysterious youth was able to speak in his mind, and that in itself was enough to show just how powerful the mysterious youth was. The Samsara sword was the Samsara disc. Longao knew the importance of the Samsara disc, but he couldn't care less under such circumstances. Longao was not a fool. If he wanted to use the Samsara sword, he must use the 9-cycle Samsara sword. All the Samsara power in his body flowed into the Samsara sword in his hand. All of a sudden, the Samsara sword was surrounded by black light, shining in all directions. It was very dazzling. Even Longao himself was shocked. However, he couldn't control the Samsara sword without other sword techniques. In this case, it would be difficult for the Samsara sword to break the mental demon steel. Samsara sword technique? At this moment, a sword technique suddenly appeared in Longao's mind. It was the Samsara sword technique. It was difficult to use a sword technique without cultivation. However, the Samsara sword technique was different. It was as if it was made for Longao. In an instant, Longao held the Samsara sword in his hand and began to wave it. How could the mental demon steel resist the attack of the Samsara sword? He glanced at Man Yi, who was not far away, and attacked crazily as if he had gone mad. There was no doubt. Longao certainly knew what had happened. If he didn't know what dangers were ahead, it would be the best time to kill Man Yi. Even if he didn't ask, he believed that Man Yi couldn't leave here alive. If it weren't for the reincarnation sword, he probably wouldn't have been able to leave the Heart Devil Steel alive. It was not the time to kill Man Yi. Thinking about it, Longao strode forward with the reincarnation sword in his hand. A few minutes later, the Heart Devil Steel was destroyed. The two of them were enveloped by the black light and left the mysterious space. In front of the sky-reaching steel. Thank you. Let's talk about our grudges later. Let's work together and leave this place first. He nodded. Longao was very curious because the Heart Devil Steel's Heart Devil attack had already been broken by his Samsara sword. Under normal circumstances, the Heart Devil Steel should have already been broken, so why would it still block in front of him? Right at this moment. And a stone door suddenly appeared in front of the mental demon steel. Looking at the stone door in front of them, the two of them were instantly overjoyed. It seemed that the two of them had successfully passed the test. Up until now, Man Yu was still a bit nervous because if it wasn't for Longao just now, he believed that he would have already fallen. Longao, you saved my life. I will remember this kindness. If there is a chance, I will pay you back. After that, Man Yu didn't hesitate. He walked to the stone door and disappeared in it. As time went by, Longao gradually found that Man Yu was a good person. However, the enmity between him and the Divine Island was like fire and water. He killed 10 people of the Divine Island. Even if he was willing to give up, the Divine Island wouldn't. He shrugged helplessly. Longao did not hesitate in the slightest and entered the stone door. As soon as Longao disappeared, a figure suddenly appeared. Looking at the mental demon steel in front of him, Tianqin sneered and said to himself, "A mutated 9 netherworld tiger. His life is not simple. It seems that I have a chance to be reborn. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that I would hand over the inheritance. Ha 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 ha." He looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. His laughter resounded between heaven and earth. Longao and Man Yi couldn't see any more. They entered the stone door. Under the white light, they appeared in a big hall. The hall around them was very strange. They looked at each other and saw a trace of fear in each other's eyes. After all, the hall was too strange and gave people a very uncomfortable feeling. Longao, this hall is not simple. According to my guess, if there is no accident, the thing we are looking for is in this hall. Longao nodded. Of course, he knew what Man Yi was looking for. In fact, not only Man Yi, but also Longao had guessed that the peak martial arts inheritance they were looking for Tian Chen's inheritance, was in this hall. His intuition told him that the so-called Heart of Stars was here. In order to obtain Tian Chen's inheritance, they must first find the Heart of Stars. Man Yi probably didn't know about this. Longao didn't tell Man Yi the truth. In this situation, if they wanted to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, they would have to rely on their own abilities. If he told Man Yi, wouldn't he be looking for trouble? Moreover, Man Yi had already subdued the heaven-devouring python. Even if he didn't obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, Yemo believed that with his current strength, as long as he didn't encounter a Nirvana realm martial artist who was at the unity of heaven and man realm, he could do whatever he wanted in the external sea. Yes, Man Yi, you and I won't fight each other in the star purgatory. If you want to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, you will have to rely on your own abilities. Alright, I hope you and I are both alive. You are my friend. Friend? Hearing Man Yi's words, Longao was a little surprised. Even if they weren't enemies, they definitely weren't friends. However, Longao didn't have the slightest doubt. Man Yi was a straightforward and upright person. They didn't continue to dwell on this issue. Neither of them continued to talk. They just stared at the surroundings of the hall. Although they had become friends, both of them wanted to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance. Again, there was only one way to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, and that was to rely on their own abilities. There are 2 entrances. Longao, you and I will each choose one. Let's see if your luck is better or mine is better. No problem. Longao felt helpless in his heart. Because he possessed martial arts, the probability of finding the Heart of Stars was very high. As for Man Yi, he didn't even know about the Heart of Stars. How could he obtain the peak martial arts inheritance? What a joke. Chapter 1549. Lunatic chose the left entrance. On the other hand, Longao chose the right entrance. Just as Lunatic was about to step into the entrance, Longao suddenly said, "Brother Yi, wait a moment." "Brother Long, what's the matter?" The way they addressed each other was different. This also meant that the 2 of them had changed from enemies to friends. "Brother Yi, if you want to obtain the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Tao, you must first find the Heart of Stars. Otherwise, even if you can find the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Tao, you won't be able to obtain it." "What is the Heart of Stars?" Without the slightest doubt, Lunatic knew Longao's character very well. It was precisely because of this that Lunatic was very surprised. "Brother Yi, I have a martial technique here. Only by relying on this martial technique can we find the Heart of Stars. This way, we can obtain the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial Tao. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will pay them back double. On the contrary, if people respect me, I will respect them tenfold." Since Longao already treated Lunatic as a friend, he didn't have the slightest intention of hiding his strength. Everyone relied on their own abilities. The most important thing for friends was fairness. Longao didn't want to take advantage of him. After receiving the martial technique, Lunatic looked deeply at Longao. He didn't say anything and only nodded his head. He turned and left, instantly disappearing at the entrance. Not taking this matter to heart, Longao also turned and disappeared at the entrance. The entrance was a deep corridor. Even with Longao's speed, he still took a few minutes to walk to the end of the corridor. At the end, there was a side hall. It was very desolate, like a barren land. When Longao stepped into the side hall, a desolate aura rushed towards him. A cold shiver ran down his spine. The desolate aura was like a sharp sword, piercing his body and causing him to feel a faint pain. Heart of Stars? Looking at the heart crystal placed in the middle of the side hall, Longao already knew without guessing that the heart crystal in front of him was the Heart of Stars that he was looking for. Without any hesitation, Longao immediately circulated his martial skill and easily arrived before the Heart of Stars. He reached out and grabbed the heart crystal tightly in his hand. Longao was very clear that if he had not obtained the ancient seal text and obtained the so-called martial technique, it would have been impossible for him to come into contact with the heart crystal. Now that he had successfully obtained the heart of stars, his chances of obtaining the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts were as high as 99%. In other words, there was a 100% chance that he would obtain the martial arts peak inheritance. And the result? As Longao held the heart crystal in his hand, the surrounding desolate aura suddenly started to swirl rapidly. It was only for a moment. The desolate aura that was spinning more and more intensely enveloped Longao. Startled, Longao had no idea what was going on because the surrounding desolate aura was crazily corroding his body, even his soul. Longao, I like your physical body very much. As long as you hand over the 9 netherworld tiger, I can promise you that your soul can enter the cycle of reincarnation. You can be reborn in at most 1,000 years and return to your peak. What do you think? At this moment, Tian Chen's figure suddenly appeared in the side hall. Seeing this, Longao already knew what was going on. Tian Chen wanted to use his body and Long Ming to be reborn. T, the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts. Everything was fake. Tian Chen, even if you self-destruct, I will not fulfill your wish. You want to be reborn? Dream on. Just the taboo energy of a starry sky expert was not something that he could contend against. Longao could clearly sense that the desolate aura that was corroding his body was the taboo energy of a starry sky expert. Unable to communicate with Long Fu and Xiling, it would be difficult for him to break the taboo energy with his own strength. Ha ha ha, Longao, even if you don't want to, do you think you can make the decision? Tianchen stretched out his hand and pointed gently. The desolate aura around Longao spun faster and faster. However, it was obvious that Tianchen did not want to make a move immediately. He just imprisoned Longao and did not attack. Longao, if I did not sense the existence of the mutated 9 netherworld tiger, you would be my best choice. I would also keep my promise and choose you to inherit my inheritance. Before Longao could speak, Tianchen continued. But now, I have changed my mind. With the help of you and the 9 netherworld tiger, I don't need to look for an heir. I can be reborn. Ha ha! Longao's face darkened. He did not expect Tianchen to go back on his words. This situation was very unfavorable for him. Tianchen did not need to continue looking for an heir. There was no doubt that besides him, even Man Yi at the other entrance would not be able to escape death. What should he do? In his mind, he quickly thought of all kinds of ways to get out of here. Longao, are you not willing to accept this? Do you want to leave? As long as you agree, your spiritual soul can enter the reincarnation path and be reborn. Otherwise, when I destroy your spiritual soul, you won't even have the chance to enter the reincarnation path. Tianchen, why don't you try? Longao sneered in his heart. It was almost certain that Tianchen did not have full confidence that he could successfully suppress him. Once he had the chance to self-destruct, Tianchen would not even have the chance to do so. Would Tianchen agree? There was no doubt about it. The more Longao acted like this, the more gloomy Tianchen's face became. Suddenly, Tianchen laughed coldly. His laughter was filled with all kinds of eeriness and strangeness. The desolate forbidden force suppressed Longao and began to erode Longao's spiritual soul. If it was not for the 9 netherworld tiger, the forbidden force released by Tianchen would be enough to kill Longao instantly. Tianchen knew this, and so did Longao. Longao, I'll help you with all my strength. With the help of the reincarnation sword, you can attack with all your strength. Remember, seize the opportunity and leave immediately. Don't stay for even a moment. Otherwise, you won't have a second chance. At this critical moment, the mysterious young man's voice suddenly sounded in Longao's mind. He was delighted. Although he did not know what level the mysterious young man's strength had reached, Longao was very sure that the mysterious young man must be an expert of the starry sky, and his strength was not lower than the heaven Tao. Tianqin in front of him could not be a level 8 starry sky cultivator. However, even so, Longao still could not believe it. Even if the reincarnation sword was powerful and had the help of the mysterious young man, it was easier said than done to escape with one attack. However, things had already come to this point. Even if he did not believe it, he could only try. Otherwise, he would really die. Imprisoned by the forbidden force, he could not move at all. Chapter 1550. Still want to resist? His face was full of contempt. As a powerhouse at the peak of the martial Tao, although he was only a grade 1 starry sky cultivator, it was enough to look down on the world. Not to mention a puny god emperor, even if a nirvana rebirth cultivator was here, he would not put them in his eyes. The gap between the starry sky realm and the nirvana realm was too big, like one was the sky and the other was the earth. The two could not be compared. Imprisoned by the taboo power, Longao could not even move. Even if he wanted to use the samsara sword, he was powerless. But at this time, the taboo power that imprisoned him suddenly disappeared. "Huh!" he exclaimed in surprise. Tianqin did not seem to think that Longao could remove his taboo power. Was the other party a starry sky cultivator? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Because of this, Tianqin really could not figure out how Longao did it. Before Tianqin could react, the taboo power had just disappeared. Longao clenched the samsara sword with both hands, roared and directly slashed at Tianqin. The black sword light was like a shocking thunder, fiercely cutting through the space. "Grade 2 taboo power!" Tianqin roared in horror. He never thought that Longao could release a grade 2 taboo power. Not daring to hesitate, Tianqin immediately disappeared. However, in the next second, a miserable cry rang out. Because the black sword light was too fast, even Tianqin couldn't dodge it. Grade 2 taboo power? Could it be a grade 2 starry sky cultivator? Longao knew very well that the mysterious youth who helped him was definitely not a mere grade 2 starry sky cultivator. It seemed that the mysterious youth's strength was very strong, 100 times stronger than he thought. Starry sky cultivators were divided into 9 levels. In order of strength, they were grade 1 starry sky cultivator, grade 2 starry sky cultivator, grade 3 starry sky cultivator, grade 4 starry sky cultivator, grade 5 starry sky cultivator, grade 6 starry sky cultivator, grade 7 starry sky cultivator, grade 8 starry sky cultivator, and grade 9 starry sky cultivator. Correspondingly, taboo energy was also divided into 9 levels. The taboo might was ranked from lowest to highest as level 1 taboo power, level 2 taboo power, level 3 taboo power, level 4 taboo power, level 5 taboo power, level 6 taboo power, level 7 taboo power, level 8 taboo power, and level 9 taboo power. Level 2 taboo power, corresponding to a level 2 starry sky cultivator. For a genius to not even be able to contend against a level 2 taboo power, Tianqin's strength was clear as day. Grade 2 starry sky cultivator. Longao had almost affirmed that Tianqin was the so-called grade 2 starry sky cultivator. Even so, Tianqin was not a super existence that he could contend with. Just now, the mysterious young man had said that he only had one chance. If he didn't take this chance to leave, once Tianqin found out, he would be in big trouble. No matter what, the mysterious young man would only help him once. After injuring Tianqin, Longao did not linger. He immediately left the side chamber. Until now, Longao finally breathed a sigh of relief. If not for the mysterious young man's help, this time, he would have definitely died. If it were an ordinary person, after injuring Tianqin with great difficulty, they would definitely leave the palace and the island first. Only Longao did not leave the palace. As soon as he left the right side chamber, he immediately rushed towards the left side chamber. His speed was as fast as lightning. If it were an enemy, Longao would definitely not help. If it were a friend, Even if it was at the risk of his life, Longao would not hesitate to help. This was Longao's principle, and no matter what, it would not change. Longao had full confidence in his heart. The person that Tianqin wanted to deal with was him, not Man Yi. In other words, Man Yi would be fine for the time being. Sure enough, as soon as Longao stepped into the side chamber, he saw Man Yi looking for the heart of stars. Man Yi was not attacked at all. He breathed a sigh of relief. Man Yi was still fine. "Brother Long, why are you here?" He was a little surprised. However, Man Yi had already guessed that there were only two possibilities for Longao to suddenly appear here. The first possibility was that Longao did not obtain the heart of stars at all, let alone the so-called peak martial arts inheritance. The second possibility was that Longao had already found the heart of stars. This time, he only came to tell him not to continue wasting his time. No matter which possibility it was, Man Yi would not have any anger because he had already sincerely regarded Longao as a friend. "Brother Yi, the matter is a little urgent. Quickly follow me. I will tell you as we walk." "Okay." Seeing Longao's impatient expression, Lunatic Yi was also alarmed in his heart, not knowing what in the world had happened. However, Man Yi chose to believe Longao. With his understanding of Longao, unless something big happened, Longao would not be like this. The more Longao acted like this, the more curious Man Yi was. What exactly happened? Along the way, Longao recounted everything that had happened previously in full detail. After hearing this, Man Yi sighed endlessly. He had never imagined that the master of the Purgatory of Stars, Tianqin, had not fallen and was still here. Under such circumstances, it seemed that their chances of obtaining the inheritance at the peak of the martial way were almost zero. Not only that. Not only would they not be able to obtain the peak martial arts inheritance, but they would also not be able to leave here alive. After all, Tianqin did not want this matter to spread out. The best way was to eliminate the root of the problem. The two passed through a long corridor and arrived at the main hall. They found that the stone door had disappeared. Tianqin was injured, but Longao was not sure how serious his injury was. If it was only a minor injury, then wouldn't he be dead for sure? "Brother Long, what should we do now?" Man Yi was also very scared. Tianqin's strength was there for all to see. He was an expert at the peak of martial arts. Not to mention him, even if his father and the first elder were here, they would not dare to casually provoke Tianqin. A peak martial artist was the strongest expert on the martial heaven continent. Other than the heavenly Daos and the god diviner, no one was a match for Tianqin. He was no match for him, and Longao was no match for him. To tell you the truth, I just used some kind of energy to heavily injure Tianqin. If nothing unexpected happens, Tianqin should be recovering right now. So we should be safe for now. However, I don't know how long it will take for him to recover. With only a spirit, and no physical body, it would not be easy for Tianqin to recover from his injuries. You seriously injured Tianqin? Hearing Longao's words, Man Yi fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva, his face filled with disbelief. Chapter 1551. Man Yi found it hard to believe. Tianqin was an expert at the pinnacle of martial arts. Longao was only at the Emperor God realm. If Tianqin had injured Longao, it might be reasonable. But if it was the other way around, it seemed a little strange. Man Yi did not have the slightest doubt, and chose to believe it. But if this matter was spread out, no one would choose to believe it. Brother Yi, since you and I are looking for an exit, I will tell you a secret. Brother Long, please tell me. I'm all ears. Man Yi was looking forward to hearing the secret Longao was talking about. What kind of secret was it? Man Yi originally wanted to ask how Longao had injured an expert at the pinnacle of martial arts, but when the words were on the tip of his tongue, he swallowed them back. As a friend, Man Yi knew what to ask and what not to ask. Longao obviously did not want to tell him, so why should he ask more? Brother Yi, as everyone knows, above the Nirvana realm is the expert at the pinnacle of martial arts. He nodded. Man Yi became more and more curious, because what Longao said was known to everyone in the world. It was not a secret. Man Yi did not believe that the secret Longao said was the so-called thing. In fact, no one, including your father, knows that the so-called pinnacle of martial arts is the so-called Starry Sky realm. It was the first time he had heard of it, and also the first time he had heard of it. Man Yi was very direct. That was, what Longao was talking about now was something he had never heard of or come into contact with before. Brother Long, what is the Starry Sky realm? The Starry Sky realm is the so-called pinnacle of martial arts. The two talked while looking for an exit, because no one knew when Tian Chen's injury would recover. The longer they delayed, the more danger they would be in. It was a race against time. Experts at the pinnacle of martial arts are also called Starry Sky cultivators, and the Starry Sky realm is divided into 9 levels. In the purgatory of stars where we are, Master Tian Chin is a first-level Starry Sky cultivator. He looked shocked. Man Yi seemed to be unable to digest it, but no matter who heard it for the first time, they would have such an expression. If it wasn't Longao who said it himself, would Man Yi believe it if someone else said it? Brother Long, do you know what realm the heavenly Tao is? What realm is the divine mathematician at? An even vaster world, vast and boundless. As Longao said, Man Yi realized that he was actually very insignificant. According to my guess, the heavenly Tao should be a grade 8 Starry Sky cultivator. As for the divine mathematician, I believe you have already guessed it. If nothing unexpected happens, the divine mathematician's strength should be above the heavenly Tao. He should be a peak existence, the so-called grade 9 Starry Sky cultivator. Although he had already guessed it, Man Yi still couldn't help but be shocked. It seemed that the God Diviner and the heavenly Taos were still at the peak of the martial heaven continent. Grade 1 Starry Sky cultivator, grade 8 Starry Sky cultivator, or even grade 9 Starry Sky cultivator. Although the two of them did not know the realm of a Starry Sky cultivator, they could still imagine how big the gap between the two was. In front of the Tao of Heaven and Master God Diviner, Tianqin was like an ant. Brother Long, I would like to ask about your background. Since things had already reached this point, Man Yi had already guessed that the origin of the youth beside him was definitely not simple. Longao smiled and did not hide anything. He roughly told him what had happened to him in the martial heaven continent. As for Long Fu Xiling Bai Ling, and the mysterious youth, he did not mention a single word. Even so, after hearing this, Man Ye's heart couldn't help but tremble. He had provoked 3 superpowers at the same time, and had counterattacked time and time again. Even being able to survive until now was a miracle in itself. Especially when he heard about the battle in the Sword Sect, Man Yi was even more surprised. The divine mathematician had personally come to the Sword Sect and favored Longao, setting a 1-year agreement. Brother Long, your experience is truly legendary. To tell you the truth, I admire you very much. He smiled. Brother Yi, let alone you, even I admire myself very much. At this time, Longao suddenly stopped looking for an exit and sat down. He sat on the ground. I never thought that I would incur enmity with anyone. In truth, my wish is very simple. I want to pursue the peak of the martial path and live happily with my family and loved ones. However, the world is unpredictable. The world is unpredictable. What a good the world is unpredictable. Man Yi also sighed and sighed endlessly. People in the Jianghu have no choice. Hearing this, Longao nodded in agreement. He repeated, People in the Jianghu have no choice. Brother Yi, your cultivation base has already broken through to the Nirvana realm. With your talent, if nothing unexpected happens, you will definitely be able to reach the Nirvana realm in the future. Now, I will tell you another secret. Another secret. Man Yi seemed to be a bit afraid of hearing such a secret, but he was also a bit excited and expectant. It was very contradictory, because each of Longao's secrets was heaven-shaking and earth-shattering. If one's heart was weak, they would probably jump out. Brother Long, please tell me. Everyone knows that if you want to continue to improve after breaking through to the Nirvana realm, and reach the peak of the martial path, which is the so-called starry sky realm, there is only one way, and that is to devour the power of origin and seek a breakthrough. Exactly. This was the rule of the Nirvana realm to break through to the peak of the martial path. No one could change it. Indeed. In this case, as long as a Nirvana realm martial artist can devour the power of origin, if nothing unexpected happens, almost all of them can reach the peak of the martial path. However, once the cultivation base breaks through to the starry sky realm, it is as difficult as ascending to the sky to improve again. If your talent and opportunity are not good enough, it is impossible to improve again in this lifetime. Yi Qingyu was shocked. Man Yi was not a fool. Of course, he could understand the meaning of Longao's words. Was there something fishy about it? Nodding, Longao continued. Brother Yi, if you want to go further on the martial path in the future, don't devour the power of origin. Even if the power of origin is in front of you, don't do it. Why is that? Man Yi was a little anxious, because this matter was related to whether he could break through to the peak of the martial path in the future, and everything after the breakthrough. If you can reproduce the power of origin on your own, then once your cultivation base breaks through to the starry sky realm, it will have indescribable benefits for your future breakthroughs, although it is a little difficult to reproduce the power of origin. Longao did not tell Man Yi the truth, because all the power of origin on the Tianwu continent was sealed by the heavenly Tao. It was almost impossible for a Nirvana realm martial artist to reproduce the power of origin that belonged to him. Only by relying on the power of origin could one reproduce the power of origin. P.S. Send the second chapter. Chapter 1552. Brother Long, forgive me for being blunt. Please speak. Man Yi thought for a moment and said, In the past 10,000 years, I've never heard of anyone being able to reproduce source energy. Even the strongest person below the peak of the martial path, the Thousand Beast Ancestor, couldn't do it. So Man Yi had thought of it. Longao didn't intend to tell the truth. Since Man Yi had already thought of this, there was no point in continuing to hide it. Brother Yi, do you know why no one has been able to reproduce their own source energy for so many years? It's related to the heavenly Tao. It seemed that Man Yi already knew. Yes. In fact, it wasn't just Man Yi. Many people knew about this matter clearly. It was just that no one dared to provoke the heavenly Tao due to its strength. According to the information I received, the Tianwu continent was filled with source energy back then. As long as one's cultivation could break through to the Nirvana realm, one would have two choices. One was to devour the source energy, and the other was to comprehend the source energy and reproduce their own source energy. It's all because the heavenly Tao sealed the source energy that no one could break through to the peak of the martial path. Longao seemed to already know and wasn't the slightest bit surprised. He was a little curious. Brother Long, if that's the case, without comprehending the source energy, how can we reproduce it? I also don't know, but I believe that we will eventually find a way. Would it really happen? Seeing that Longao was so optimistic, Man Yi didn't say anything to disturb him. However, in Man Yi's heart, there wasn't the slightest bit of excitement or anticipation. Because for more than 10,000 years, could he and Longao really do something that no one had been able to do? All right, let's hurry and find the exit. Otherwise, I'm afraid it'll be too late. Okay. Longao and Man Yi once again began to search crazily. Because time was passing bit by bit, who knew when Tianqin would recover? In the main hall, the desolate aura had already begun to slowly spread. Man Yi might not know what the desolate aura meant, but how could Longao not know? Just now in the side hall, he was locked on by the desolate aura and was almost killed by Tianqin. The desolate aura was the forbidden power. Longao was very wary. Brother Yi, be careful. This is the forbidden power of a starry sky powerhouse. Forbidden power? Hearing Longao's reminder, Lunatic Yi was shocked. Of course, he knew what the so-called taboo power meant. As an expert at the peak of martial arts, the taboo power was the most powerful force in the world. It was enough to destroy everything. Brother Long, what should we do now? Longao could even injure Tianqin, let alone a taboo power. Man Yi had overestimated Longao's strength and underestimated Tianqin's strength. Shaking his head, Longao expressed his helplessness. The desolate aura spread very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it had already covered every corner of the hall. Without the arrival of Tianqin, the aura of desolation was just an aura of desolation. It could not be transformed into the so-called forbidden power. Only then did the two of them heave a sigh of relief. The forbidden power could destroy the heavens and earth. Brother Yi, I'm still not sure how serious Tianqin's injuries are. But based on the current situation, they shouldn't be light. Therefore, we have to find the exit as soon as possible. Otherwise, once Tianqin recovers, it'll be hard to say what will happen to us. Longao was almost certain that the sword from before had dealt a huge amount of damage to Tianqin. Otherwise, there was no way Tianqin would not have appeared after such a long time. They had to buy time. Nodding his head, Lunatic Yi understood the severity of the situation. Without any hesitation, he began to search for the exit. Within the hall, the desolate aura was getting thicker and thicker. Cough, 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 cough. Longao and Lunatic Yi started coughing violently. It was as if the two of them were having a competition. One coughed, the other coughed. What a lively scene! What was going on? Both of them were surprised. Given their strength, there was no way they would start coughing for no reason. Could it be that Tianqin had appeared? That didn't seem right. If Tianqin had appeared, why would he be hiding in the dark? The heart of the stars. Suddenly, 3 words flashed across Longao's mind. It was the heart of the stars that he had obtained from the side hall. According to Tianqin, as long as he could obtain the heart of Tianqin, he would be able to obtain the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts. If that was the case, then whether or not the heart of Tianqin was the key to leaving the hall, he would know after trying it out. Taking out the heart of the stars, Longao tried to channel his energy into it. However, nothing happened. Looking at this situation, Longao was dumbfounded. Could it be that the heart of the stars was not the key to opening the door of the hall? Longao did not choose to give up on the divine soul. Instead, he poured his divine soul into the heart of stars. Suddenly, the heart of stars radiated light in all directions, directly dispersing the desolate aura. Following that, it dominated the entire hall. Brother Long, is this the so-called heart of the stars? Of course, Lunatic Yi knew about the item in Longao's hands. However, it was no longer important. Since Tianqin wanted to be reborn, how could he let them obtain the inheritance? In other words, whether they obtained the heart of the stars or not, the result would be the same. Nodding his head, Longao said, "Follow me closely." As expected, following the appearance of the heart of the stars, a spatial gate suddenly appeared in the hall. The two of them looked at each other and saw a trace of surprise in each other's eyes. The two of them did not speak, nor did they stop. They both took a step forward and directly entered the spatial gate, disappearing without a trace. In front of the heart devil steel. Realizing that the two of them had successfully left the hall, the two of them were pleasantly surprised. However, their expressions immediately turned solemn. Although they had successfully left the hall, this was still the astral purgatory, Tianqin's territory. As long as they didn't leave, they wouldn't be safe. They had to leave the astral purgatory as soon as possible. Easier said than done. Let's go. Whether it was Lunatic Yi or Longao, the two of them did not dare to have the slightest hesitation. They shot forward as fast as they could. However, at this moment, the two of them abruptly stopped because in front of them was the territory of the blood-red praying mantis. And behind the territory of the blood-red praying mantis was the territory of the blood-red spider. Whether it was the blood-red spider or the blood-red praying mantis, they were both abnormally terrifying. Wanting to force their way through was not an easy task. Brother Yi, help me with all your strength. No problem. Up until now, Lunatic Yi still couldn't figure out what kind of martial skill Longao had used to force his way through. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. It was simply unimaginable and unbelievable. P.S. I went out to do something. I'll be back in the afternoon to continue updating. This is the 3rd chapter. Chapter 1553. If it was just Longao alone, even if he used the 5 elements heaven swallowing technique, he wouldn't be able to force his way through. However, the situation this time was completely different from the previous time. Brother Long, what's going on? He was a little surprised. He was also a little helpless. Longao was very clear that with his 5 elements heaven swallowing technique and Lunatic Yi's help, it should be easy to smoothly break through. But the result? My technique has lost its effect. Lunatic Yi was shocked to hear this. The two of them didn't dare to take a step forward because there were blood spiders and blood mantises in front of them. Once they were trapped, the consequences would be unimaginable. What should they do? The two of them looked at each other. For a moment, no one had a better idea. Danger was imminent. The two of them were very clear that once Tianchen recovered from his injuries, they wouldn't be able to leave this place alive, let alone leave this place. It was a race against time. Brother Long, I have an idea. What is it? Longao was very curious. He didn't know what Tianchen would do to leave this place at this moment. Heaven-swallowing python. With just 4 simple words, Longao already knew what Lunatic Yi's idea was. No matter what, the heaven-swallowing python was still a nirvana divine beast. It might really be able to bring them out of this place. Lunatic Yi didn't hesitate at all. At the same time, the heaven-swallowing python's huge body also left. The two of them looked dignified and quickly followed the heaven-swallowing python. The heaven-swallowing python led the way. Even so, the two of them didn't relax at all. Because the two of them still weren't sure if the heaven-swallowing python could resist the siege of the blood spiders and blood mantises. In any case, there were too many blood spiders and blood mantises. As the saying goes, 2 fists can't fight against 4 hands. The heaven-swallowing python's terrifying aura swept through the army. It had the aura of one man holding back 10,000 men. However, in just a few minutes, countless blood mantises drowned the heaven-swallowing python. Huh! Looking at the disappearance of the heaven-swallowing python, both Longao and Lunatic Yi were a little dumbfounded. They didn't know what was going on. Not daring to be careless, the two of them quickly retreated. Fortunately, the two of them were very fast. Otherwise, they would be drowned by the army of blood mantises. Brother Long, even the heaven-swallowing python can't leave this place. He nodded. How could Long not know what Lunatic Yi's meaning? Longao did not expect that even with the strength of the sky-devouring python, it could not break through the army of blood-red praying mantises. In just an instant, it was submerged by the army of blood-red praying mantises. Would be if he didn't see it with his own eyes. It lunatic Yi's to heaven way to leave this place. Lunatic heaven swallowing. This was because the countless blood-red spiders in front of them had suddenly stopped moving. The aura of the Nirvana divine beast. As soon as Longao finished his words, the ground suddenly began to tremble. In the next moment, 2 enormous divine beasts appeared. The enormous blood spider and the enormous blood mantis, the 2 divine beasts, were genuine Nirvana realm divine beasts, and had reached the oneness of heaven and man. Oneness of heaven and man had the domain of heaven and earth. Things had already reached this point. If Longao still could not guess, then he would really be a fool. Brother Yi, it seems that the heaven-swallowing python was drowned by the 2 divine beasts. It should be. The two nirvana mythical beasts that had achieved unity of heaven and man could easily destroy the sky-devouring python in a one-on-one battle, let alone a two-on-one battle. No matter what level the divine beasts of Nirvana realm were, they were just pets in Tian Chen's eyes. They kept retreating. The two of them looked more and more dignified. Because of the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm, they couldn't even survive, let alone break through. All of a sudden, two terrifying realms of heaven and earth erupted from the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm and shrouded them. Under the realms of heaven and earth, everything was like an ant. The two of them were locked by the realms of heaven and earth and couldn't move at all. Seeing the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm slowly approaching them, they would be lying if they said they weren't afraid. "Brother Long, what should we do now?" Man Yu didn't know why, but he trusted Longao very much at this moment. It was as if he was sure that Longao could get rid of the realms of heaven and earth and leave this place. "Long Fu, help me!" Although he was unable to communicate with Long Fu and Purple Spirit, under such circumstances, Longao was still very clear that only Long Fu and Purple Spirit could help him. After all, with the strength of the realm of heaven and earth, with his strength, there was no way he could break the lock. However, Long Fu still didn't answer or make a move. This could only mean one thing. Until now, Longao still couldn't communicate with Long Fu. In a hurry, Longao could only take out the Samsara sword and slashed backward. Longao was just trying. He didn't expect that he could break the realms of heaven and earth with the help of the Samsara sword. After all, the realms of heaven and men were unique to the oneness of heaven and men. Not to mention himself, even a Nirvana realm warrior who had comprehended heaven and earth couldn't break the realms of heaven and earth. However, a shocking scene appeared. The Samsara sword burst out with the Samsara sword and instantly broke the realms of heaven and earth released by the two divine beasts. Not to mention Longao, even Man Yu was a little dumbfounded. "Let's go." The two of them didn't continue to think about this problem because the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm had already taken action. If they were caught by the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm, the result would be obvious. In a few seconds, the two of them returned to the front of the Heart Devil Steel. "Brother Long, if we continue to move forward, we will have to return to the main hall. Once Tianchun recovers, we won't be able to advance or retreat. At that time, we will be in a dilemma and it will be really difficult to leave here." Longao was certainly clear about this problem. Enter the main hall? Or fight the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm? After thinking about it, Longao realized that no matter if they entered the main hall or fought the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm, only death would await them. Longao certainly didn't want such a result. How should he choose? There was a tiger in front and a wolf behind. They couldn't advance or retreat. Sensing that the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm were getting closer and closer to them, they became more and more worried. If they couldn't make a choice, they could only fight the two divine beasts of Nirvana realm. At that time, they would still die. Chapter 1554. He was in a dilemma. Gritting his teeth, Longao said, "Let's enter the main hall." Since things had come to this point, Longao finally chose to enter the main hall instead of fighting with the two Nirvana divine beasts. Longao's meaning was very simple. If they chose to enter the main hall, Tian Chen's injuries would not recover in a short time. They still had a chance. Once they chose to fight with the two Nirvana divine beasts, they would only die. After thinking about it, in the end, Longao made this choice. As for Lunatic Yi, he did not doubt Longao's decision at all. When the two Nirvana divine beasts were only 3 meters away, they had already stepped into the stone door and disappeared without a trace. In the main hall, a desolate aura filled the entire main hall. It was very helpless. Lunatic Yi sighed and said, "Brother Long, I really didn't expect that you and I would come back after we finally left this damn place." He also shrugged helplessly. "I don't know when Tian Chen's injuries will recover. The only thing we need to do now is to find a way out of here." There was no chance to get the inheritance of the peak of martial arts. There was nothing else to do except leave. The matter was very serious because neither of them knew when Tian Chen's injuries would recover. For a moment, neither of them continued to speak. The main hall fell into silence. Looking at the samsara sword in front of him, Longao was very shocked. Until now, he had not reacted because he had never expected that the samsara sword could break the lock of the domain of heaven and earth. If he had not seen it with his own eyes and experienced it personally, he would have found it hard to believe. It seemed that the samsara sword transformed from the samsara disc was very powerful. In this case, could the samsara sword restore the spatial fluctuations? Since entering here, Longao had not only been unable to teleport, but also could not enter the dragon seal space. The reason was very simple. It was because the spatial fluctuations here were disturbed. Because of this, Longao thought that if he could use the power of the samsara sword to restore the spatial fluctuations, wouldn't he be able to communicate with Long Fu and Xiling? "Brother Yi, help me keep an eye here." "All right." Without any hesitation, Longao immediately brandished the samsara sword. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings were filled with samsara sword light, forming a samsara sword light chi cover. As expected, Longao's guess was correct. "Xiling, Long Fu, I'm trapped in the main hall. Is there any way for me to leave?" Of course, Xiling and Long Fu knew what had happened. Xiling thought for a while and said, "Tianqin is a grade 1 starry sky cultivator. It would be difficult for the two of you to fight against him. With the strength of a starry sky powerhouse, how could Longao not know the gap between himself and Tianqin?" "Longao, with me and Long Fu's help, you can leave the purgatory of stars in a matter of minutes." Hearing this, Longao's face lit up. It seemed that his guess was correct. Before Longao had time to speak, Xiling continued, "Longao, I believe you won't be willing to leave like this." He felt helpless. What could he do even if he was unwilling? After all, Tianqin's strength was obvious. It was almost impossible for him to get the inheritance of the peak of martial arts. Did Xiling have a way? Longao was not a fool. Xiling would not say this casually. It seemed that there was something fishy about it. "Xiling, do you have a way for me to get the inheritance of the peak of martial arts?" Seeing Xiling nod, Longao was not as surprised as he had imagined, because Xiling had not fully recovered from his injuries. It was impossible for him to fight against Tianqin. "Longao, Long Fu and I will do our best to set up a trap for Tianqin. The success rate is about 50%. "Only 50%? He was very serious and worried. Longao was afraid that something would happen to Xiling and Long Fu. He would never agree to put Xiling and Long Fu in danger for Tianqin's inheritance of the peak of martial arts. Xiling seemed to be able to guess Longao's thoughts. He smiled and said, "Longao, if you didn't hurt Tianqin, we would only have a 50% chance. But now, we have a 100% chance of success." So that was it. Longao was really shocked. "Longao, I really want to ask, what's going on with your sword?" Although he could not communicate with Xiling and Long Fu, Longao was sure that Xiling and Long Fu must know that he used the samsara sword to hurt Tianqin. In that case, there was no need for him to hide it. To tell the truth. "Xiling, to tell you the truth, the samsara sword in my hand was transformed from the samsara disc. As for the great power of the samsara sword, I was a little shocked that it could hurt Tianqin." Longao did not hide anything about the samsara disc and the samsara sword. As for the mysterious young man in the wordless heaven book, Longao did not reveal anything. Whether it was Long Fu or Xiling, Longao did not mention a word about it. "No wonder, Longao, I believe you already know that the samsara disc is the most precious treasure of the samsara clan. The samsara sword transformed from the samsara disc is indeed very powerful. It is not a big deal to hurt Tianqin. After all, Tianqin is only a spirit, not a true body." Longao was also aware of this point. "However, your samsara sword was able to break through the suppression of the forbidden power, and even the domain of heaven and earth." I am very surprised by this. Longao, remember this. The Samsara sword is different from other treasures. I have a feeling that your Samsara sword has not even displayed 1,000th of its power. Ah? Hearing this, Longao was shocked. The current power of the Samsara sword was enough to shock him. If the Samsara sword's full power was displayed, it was hard to imagine how powerful it would be. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Xiling, what should we do now? Longao did not continue to dwell on the Samsara sword, because he was very clear about one thing. If he wanted to continuously increase the power of the Samsara sword, the first condition was to continuously increase his own strength. However, increasing strength was not something that could be done overnight. After thinking for a while, Xiling said, Longao, Long Fu and I will set up an air shield in the hall later. Remember, you only need to lure Tianqin into the air shield. Leave the rest to us. Xiling, Tianqin is still a starry sky cultivator. You and Long Fu have not recovered to the peak of your strength. If you are not careful. At this point, Longao did not continue. Longao did not finish his words, but the meaning of his words was very clear. Xiling smiled and said, If it were other starry sky cultivators, we would not have full confidence. But now, Tianqin is not a threat. Longao, I want to ask you, what are you going to do with Tianqin's inheritance after you get it? Chapter 1555. The Martial Dao Peak Inheritance. From the beginning to the end, Longao had never thought that he would inherit the so-called martial arts peak inheritance. Xiling, don't worry. I won't accept the inheritance. I will reproduce the power of origin on my own. I understand. He thought about it. Longao said with a smile, If I can get the martial Dao peak inheritance, I will take it back to my family and choose someone to inherit it. If that's the case, no problem. But Longao, you have to remember that the starry sky inheritance can only last for a month at most. Once the time is up, the inheritance will automatically disappear. Longao returned to the main hall. Brother Yi, I will deal with Tianqin later. Remember, no matter what happens, don't interfere. Just stand aside and watch. He was a little shocked. Longao was going to deal with Tianqin. Was this true? He sighed. As he spent more time with Longao, Man Yi found that he knew less and less about Longao. If someone else said this, Man Yi would definitely scoff and not take it to heart. Except for Longao. Man Yi knew very well that since Longao dared to say this, he would definitely be able to do it. However, he didn't know what method Longao would use to deal with Tianqin. Brother Long, be careful. Okay. In the following time, Longao and Man Yi began to cultivate quietly. After seeing the power of the Samsara sword with his own eyes, Longao was looking forward to the power of the Samsara sword. In addition to the Samsara sword, there was also the 9-cycle reincarnation technique. Unknowingly, he had already cultivated to the 4th cycle of the 9-cycle reincarnation technique, and was working hard to break through to the 5th cycle. The 9-cycle reincarnation technique, 9-cycle reincarnation, crazy battle the world. 1st cycle reincarnation, not entering the underworld. 2nd cycle reincarnation, space teleportation. 3rd cycle reincarnation, reincarnation doppelganger. 4th cycle reincarnation, reincarnation heavenly eye. Longao was looking forward to what kind of supernatural power would be produced after breaking through to the 5th cycle of the 9-cycle reincarnation technique. He focused on cultivating the 9-cycle reincarnation technique. Following each breakthrough of the 9 revolutions samsara technique, Longao discovered one thing very gloomily. Only after experiencing life and death could he break through the 9-cycle reincarnation technique. If that was the case, what if he died? Time trickled by. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Longao, I have to admit that your courage is not bad. You actually dared to wait for death here. A cold, desolate aura suddenly descended, followed by a forbidden power, which was the unique power of a starry sky powerhouse. He was not surprised at all. Tianqin, you're going back on your word. You're a starry sky powerhouse. Tianqin seemed a little surprised when he heard Longao's words. You actually know about starry sky cultivators? Starry sky cultivators were the biggest secret of the sky martial continent. Everyone, including Rebirth Realm martial artists, knew that above the Rebirth Realm was the so-called peak realm of the martial Tao. Only those who could break through the peak of martial arts could know about the starry sky cultivators. In that case, how did the other party know? Longao, what else do you know? I know a lot. What do you want to know? His face was cold, and the forbidden power on his body grew stronger and stronger, enveloping the two of them. If it was a normal moment, even if the divine soul existed, Tianqin would still not put the two of them in his heart. Only now, after being injured by Longao once, his divine soul almost disappeared. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. Tianqin, you're just a level 1 starry sky cultivator. You should know very well that any random starry sky cultivator can easily destroy you. Hearing this, Tianqin's face became more and more gloomy. Because Longao was right. He was a level 1 starry sky cultivator. Among the 9 levels of the starry sky, he was at the bottom. All of a sudden, Tianqin smiled gloomily and said contemptuously, You're right. I'm just a level 1 starry sky cultivator, but it's more than enough to deal with you. From the beginning to the end, Man Yi did not speak and just stood quietly on the side. Experts at the peak of martial arts, the so-called starry sky cultivators, were too powerful in his eyes. The gap between them was like the gap between a baby and a big man. Man Yi was very worried. Until now, he did not know how Longao would deal with Tianqin. With the slightest carelessness, the two of them would be doomed eternally. If I told you that I also have a starry sky cultivator in my body, and that my strength is far above yours, would you still say that? Bluffing. Longao was obviously bluffing. Xiling, Bailing, and Long Fu, although they were all starry sky cultivators, the 3 of them were seriously injured. Bailing was still in a coma, and Xiling and Long Fu had not recovered from the 3 realms of nirvana, let alone the starry sky cultivator realm. Because of this, whether it was Xiling or Long Fu, it was impossible for them to be Tianqin's opponent. If it was before, Tianqin would definitely not believe Longao's words. But now, especially after being injured by Longao 3 days ago, Tianqin was very clear in his heart. If it wasn't for the help of the other party, with just the other party's strength, would he be able to injure him? Did Longao really have a starry sky cultivator in his body? Even if it was a divine soul, he could not deal with it. After all, in the starry sky level, the difference of 1 level was huge. If he was in his original body, he would not be afraid even if it was a level 2 starry sky cultivator's divine soul. He could even devour it to strengthen himself. Are you afraid? It would be strange if he said he was not afraid, but Tianqin was more or less unwilling to believe it. If Longao really had a starry sky cultivator in his body, why would he be in such a sorry state? Taking a step back, if there was really a starry sky cultivator in Longao's body, wouldn't it mean that the starry sky divine soul was seriously injured and could only help Longao? If that was the case, once he devoured it, thinking of this, Tianqin's face suddenly lit up. Oh no! Man Yi looked at Tianqin's expression and seemed to have guessed something. Of course, Man Yi did not believe Longao's words, because in his opinion, if Longao really had the help of a starry sky cultivator, he would not be in such a sorry state and almost killed by the 3 super forces. Until now, Man Yi still did not know what Longao wanted to do. You want to devour the starry sky divine soul in my body? Since he was seen through, Tianqin did not continue to hide it. He nodded with a smile and said, You are right. With my strength, once I devour your starry sky divine soul, there is no doubt that not only can I be reborn, I can even continue to break through to the level 2 starry sky cultivator realm. Longao, I can give you a chance. As long as you hand over the so-called Starry Sky Divine Soul, not only will I not kill you, I will also let you go and even help you break through to the Hierarch realm. How about it? Chapter 1556. Do you think I'll believe you? Bullshit. Longao didn't take Tian Chen's words to heart at all. Instead of getting angry, he laughed. Longao, I've already guessed your background. Let me give you a piece of advice. A wise man submits to circumstances. Don't sacrifice yourself in vain. Bullshit. If you have the ability, then do it. I'd like to see how many lives you have. Longao was so calm that Tianchen was a little stunned. Did Longao have something to rely on? That was unlikely. Tianchen believed in his guess. If Longao's Starry Sky Divine Soul was really so powerful, then Longao wouldn't be like this. All of a sudden, Tianchen smiled, looked around, and said, When I was killed by the heavenly Tao, I used the last of my strength to set up the astral purgatory. With the seal of the divine mathematician, even the heavenly Tao can't break the seal and enter the astral purgatory. The heavenly Tao? Hearing Tianchen's words, the two finally understood that Tianchen was killed by the heavenly Tao. It was really strange. But thinking about it, the heavenly Tao not only killed Tianchen, but also many starry sky cultivators in order to eliminate all dangers. After all, the heavenly Tao was an 8th level starry sky cultivator. Unless the divine mathematician personally took action, no one was a match for the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao was an 8th level starry sky cultivator. In the Tianwu continent, no one was a match for it except the divine mathematician. Hearing this, Tianchun was even more surprised. He nodded in agreement. You're right. It seems that your identity is not simple. It's hard to imagine that you even know the strength of the heavenly Tao. Longao shrugged and didn't say anything. I was seriously injured by the heavenly Tao and couldn't be reborn. I also don't want to enter the cycle of reincarnation. I can only pass on my strength to future generations, hoping that one day, someone can avenge me. Dream on. Wishful thinking. Although Longao didn't know much about starry sky cultivators, he could be sure that the 8th level starry sky realm of the heavenly Tao wasn't something that could be easily reached. To kill the heavenly Tao, one had to cultivate to the 9th level starry sky realm. Was there anyone in the martial heaven continent capable of such a feat? The astral purgatory has been opened 4 times, but no one has been able to catch my eye. This is the last time. If I still can't find an inheritor, I'm prepared to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Whether I can be reborn or not will depend on the will of the heavens. Longao remained silent. The last time, I didn't expect to meet you and the mutated 9 Serenity Earthworm Tiger. Longao, as long as I devour you, occupy your body, and devour the 9 Serenity Earthworm Tiger's divine soul, I believe I can be reborn immediately without any danger. So that was the case. You changed your mind? That's right. Tianchen smiled and said, I've already said that as long as you hand over the starry sky divine soul in your body, I'll let you go and help you break through to the ultimate God realm. How about that? Temptation. It was a blatant temptation. If it were anyone else, they would have already agreed. After all, Tianchen's strength was obvious, and this was Tianchen's territory. If he refused, only death awaited him. If he agreed, not only could he leave this place alive, but he could also break through to the ultimate God realm and reach the divine Emperor realm. Man Yi, who was standing aside, did not speak. Although he really hoped that Longao would agree, as a friend, he would support Longao unconditionally no matter what decision he made. Longao, with your current strength, you'll definitely be devoured by the starry sky divine soul in the future. Rather than that, why don't you do me a favor and you can also break through to the next realm? It's the best of both worlds. Sure. Tianchen's face suddenly lit up when he saw the other party agree. Before Tianchen could speak, Longao suddenly said. Wait. Tianchen, do you really believe that I have the starry sky divine soul in my body? What if I'm lying to you? I believe you. Well, my condition is very simple. As long as you agree to one of my conditions, I'll give you the starry sky divine soul in my body. Say it. In Tian Chen's view, no matter what condition it was nothing compared to the starry sky divine soul. Because once he devoured the starry sky divine soul, not only could he be reborn, but he could also continue to break through to the second level of starry sky cultivator. No matter what price he had to pay, he must obtain the starry sky divine soul. Tianchun was not sure what realm the starry sky divine soul in the other party's body was. A second-level starry sky divine soul was already very good. If it was a third-level starry sky divine soul, or even a fifth-level starry sky divine soul, then he would be overjoyed when he thought about devouring it. My condition is very simple. As long as you give me your inheritance, I'll agree to give you the starry sky divine soul. How about it? Furious. Tian Chen's face instantly turned gloomy. He sneered and said, Longao, you're playing with me. Why do you say so? If I give you my inheritance, I'll turn into ashes. At that time, what's the use of your starry sky divine soul? Tian Chen's heart was furious to the extreme because he already knew that the other party was obviously playing with him. As a starry sky cultivator, when had he ever been played like this? Moreover, the person who was playing with him was just a small hierarch realm cultivator. It was like trying to pull a tooth out of a tiger's mouth. Man Yu was also shocked because he never thought that Longao would do this. Anyone could see that Longao did not admit it at all. Obviously, he was playing with Tianqin. What was Longao doing? Playing with fire. Man Yu did not speak because he knew very well that Longao would not do this casually unless he wanted to commit suicide. He knew Longao very well. Could it be that Longao was retreating in order to advance? Tianchun, you really didn't admit it. In that case, I'll change my condition. If you still don't agree, then let's forget about this matter. Even if I have to self-destruct with the starry sky divine soul, I will never let you off so easily. Speak. Tianchun gritted his teeth with hatred, but in the end, he endured it. For the sake of the starry sky divine soul, for himself to break through to a higher realm, he had to endure it. Tianchun, I'd like to ask if a starry sky cultivator can practice starry sky martial skills? Xiling and Long Fu told him about starry sky martial skills. However, according to Xiling and Long Fu, the starry sky martial skills they practiced were too powerful. If they forced themselves to practice it, they would only end up dead. However, Longao still wanted to ask and see how powerful Tianchen's starry sky martial skills were. Even if he could not use them now, he could save them for the future. My starry sky martial skills are not suitable for you unless you accept my inheritance. Longao, I can take a step back. As long as you are willing to hand over the starry sky divine soul, after I break through, I will do my best to help you break through to the starry sky realm. We can also make a blood oath. How about it? Chapter 1557. Okay, I promise you. He didn't continue the conversation. Longao could clearly sense that Tianchen's anger had reached its peak. He was like a volcano that was about to erupt and could erupt at any time. As for the starry sky martial arts, Longao was still a little unwilling to give up. According to Xiling and Long Fu, the starry sky martial arts was a powerful martial arts that starry sky cultivators practiced. It was extremely powerful and powerful. However, the starry sky martial arts had a shortcoming. That was, if one's cultivation hadn't reached the starry sky level, he would definitely be counterattacked by the starry sky martial arts and the consequences would be unimaginable. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to learn all the starry sky martial arts that Xiling and Long Fu taught him. However, the only thing that made Longao extremely happy was that the reincarnation sword technique he practiced was a starry sky martial arts. The reincarnation sword technique was different from other starry sky martial arts because the reincarnation sword technique could be upgraded continuously, as the cultivator's strength increased continuously. In other words, even with Longao's current strength, if he forced himself to practice the reincarnation sword technique, he wouldn't be counterattacked. Even Xiling and Long Fu were shocked after learning about the reincarnation sword technique, because there seemed to be very few starry sky martial arts like this. Because of this, Longao became more and more curious about the mysterious young man in the wordless heaven book. The mysterious young man's strength seemed to be extraordinary. In addition to the reincarnation sword technique, there was also the reincarnation sword. According to Xiling and Long Fu's observation, since the reincarnation disc could transform into the reincarnation sword and had such power, the reincarnation sword should be a starry sky divine weapon if there was no accident. Longao finally knew why the reincarnation sword technique and the reincarnation sword could ignore the forbidden power and the lock of the domain of heaven and earth. While he was unwilling to give up, Longao was also pleasantly surprised. He didn't continue to think about the starry sky martial arts. At this time, the most important thing was to deal with Tianqin in front of him and not give him any chance to find any flaws. Tianqin, remember your promise. As soon as he finished, a purple light suddenly shot out of Longao's body. It was none other than Xiling. This was something that Xiling and Longao had discussed beforehand. Jianling? Sensing the starry sky aura erupting from the purple figure in front of him, Tianqin was pleasantly surprised to the extreme. Tianqin had never expected that the starry sky divine soul in Longao's body was actually a starry sky Jianling. Furthermore, when he sensed this starry sky aura, he could tell that this starry sky Jianling's cultivation was at least at the level 3 starry sky realm. Ha ha! Ha ha! Ha ha! All of a sudden, Tianqin threw his head back and laughed maniacally. His laughter was filled with surprise and anticipation. Longao looked on with a smile, but he was sneering in his heart. Man Yi, who was standing to the side, was also shocked to the extreme when he saw the Jianling shoot out from Longao's body. Brother Long! Longao waved his hand and said nothing. Since things had already come to this, even if Man Yi wanted to say something, he still forcefully swallowed it back down. Shoo! Tianqin seemed to be impatient as he dashed towards Xiling. In the blink of an eye, Tianqin was already close to Xiling, entering the space barrier that Xiling and Long Fu had set up beforehand. Ha ha! Longao, don't worry! As long as you're willing to submit to me, I'll reward you with a starry sky realm cultivation. You'll be my obedient dog from now on. Ha! He was still laughing maniacally. His laughter did not stop. But just at this moment, just as Tianqin was still laughing maniacally, a gigantic space barrier suddenly appeared around them. Longao laughed. Tianqin, I'd like to see how you're going to leave this place today. Longao, how dare you trick me? So what if I did? Tianqin was a little too arrogant. He had never thought that a puny reverend god would dare to play tricks with him. Indeed, carelessness killed the cat. Arrogance killed the cat. Tianqin, of course, knew how terrifying the space barrier around him was. He would not just sit there and wait for his death. Tianqin began to attack the space barrier madly. Bam! 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 The space barrier around Tianqin could not be broken no matter how hard he tried. Even though Xiling and Long Fu had yet to recover from their injuries, their powers were definitely above Tianqin's. If they did not enter the space barrier, they might not be able to do anything. But now, Tianqin's fate was sealed. I can't accept this! I can't accept this! Tianqin roared madly. However, Xiling and Long Fu would not show him any mercy. They began to suppress Tianqin forcefully. In just a few minutes, the lively Tianqin was sucked into the dragon seal space by Long Fu and Xiling. Seeing this, Longao was overjoyed. He knew that the matter was settled. Brother Long, Where's Tianqin? He was a little dumbfounded. Until now, Man and Yi still could not believe that everything that had just happened was real. If that was the case, didn't that mean that the purple figure that shot out from Longao's body was indeed a starry sky cultivator? And his powers were way above Tianqin's? Unbelievable. Because of this, Man Yi finally understood why Longao dared to provoke three superforces at the same time. It turned out that he relied on the help of the starry sky divine soul in his body. How could Longao not know what Man Yi was thinking? He said, "Brother Yi, I hope that you can keep this a secret for me." Man Yi, of course, knew the seriousness of the matter. He nodded and said, "Brother Long, don't worry. If I tell anyone about this, I will be struck by lightning and die a horrible death." Then Man Yi swore a blood oath. In fact, even if Man Yi did not swear, Longao would choose to believe him. Since he had chosen to treat Man Yi as a friend, he would not have any doubts. "The matter is settled. Brother Yi, let's leave." Although he could not obtain the inheritance of the peak of martial arts, at least he had subdued a Nirvana divine beast, and it was a heaven-devouring python. But now? Nothing. "Brother Yi, if you are willing, I can help you subdue the two Nirvana divine beasts outside." Man Yi smiled. Of course, he knew what Longao meant. He said with a smile, "Brother Long, there are more than 20 Nirvana divine beasts on my island, but there are none in the Dragon Valley. If it is possible, you can subdue the two Nirvana divine beasts outside and guard the Dragon Valley. This may not be a bad thing for you. In that case, let's do it." Longao also wanted to subdue the two Nirvana divine beasts, but he was very dignified. With his strength alone, subduing the two Nirvana divine beasts was easier said than done. The two Nirvana divine beasts were equivalent to two Nirvana divine beasts in the oneness of heaven and man realm. However, Xiling had a way. According to Xiling, this was the purgatory of stars. They had even subdued Tianqin, so subduing the two Nirvana divine beasts with the help of Tianqin's strength was more than enough. Chapter 1558. Rumble. Boom, boom, boom. Just as Longao was about to leave the main hall and make use of Xiling's powers to deal with the two Nirvana heavenly beasts, the entire island began to tremble. Strictly speaking, the entire star purgatory was trembling violently. "Xiling, what should we do now?" With just Xiling and Long Fu's powers, there was no way they could deal with the two Nirvana heavenly beasts. Xiling had made use of Tianqin's powers to tame the two Nirvana heavenly beasts as well. How could he be willing to give up just like that? The two level 2 Nirvana heavenly beasts were like charcoal in a snowstorm for the Dragon Valley right now. With Nirvana heavenly beasts holding the fort, even if they couldn't become a superforce, they could definitely become a top-tier existence amongst the Grade 2 forces. The two level 2 Nirvana heavenly beasts were of utmost importance. "Longao, we can deal with the two level 2 Nirvana heavenly beasts. As for the other things in the star purgatory, including the heavenly beasts, I'm afraid we won't make it in time. We're in trouble." As for the other things, including the blood spider and the blood mantis, Longao had no interest in them at all. The only thing he was interested in was the two level 2 Nirvana heavenly beasts. Bringing Lunaticy with him, Longao disappeared from where he was. Naturally, Xiling and Long Fu knew of the usefulness of the two level 2 Nirvana heavenly beasts to the Dragon Valley. In fact, the both of them were taking a huge risk in doing so. If they were careless, their injuries might worsen. The moment the star purgatory was destroyed, the tear in the void might even devour the both of them. Regarding this point, Longao had no idea at all. If Longao knew about this, who knew if he would agree to the both of them doing so? But thankfully, the both of them managed to tame the two level 2 Nirvana heavenly beasts and forcefully brought them into the Dragon Seal space. Immediately after, the entire star purgatory exploded, causing the entire outer seas to tremble. Many powerful beings of the 4 islands left one after another. In their shock, they could guess what had happened. Everyone had fallen within the star purgatory. This was a huge blow to the 4 islands. Outer seas, at a certain place. Brother Long, are you really leaving? During the trip to the purgatory of stars, the two of them who were originally mortal enemies had become friends in a dramatic manner. Yes, Tian Chen's legacy can only last for a month. I have to hurry back. Brother Yi, if you need anything in the future, just send me a message. All right. Without further hesitation, Longao turned around and left quickly. Outer Sea. In the Crystal Palace. Master God Diviner, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened them. He seemed a bit surprised, but at the same time, delighted. Good job, Longao. You didn't disappoint me. Long Batian had already left, so there was no way that he could send a message to Longao. In other words, the person who had delivered the news was not Long Batian but Master Clairvoyant. Devouring Tian Chen's inheritance. I believe Longao's cultivation should be able to break through to the Starry Sky realm within 3 years. Ha! Master Clairvoyant's intention was very simple. In addition to testing Longao, he wanted Longao to devour Tian Chen's inheritance so that he could break through to the Starry Sky realm in the shortest time possible. But would Longao devour Tian Chen's inheritance? If Master Clairvoyant knew that Longao had no intention of devouring Tian Chen's inheritance, he wondered what Tian Chen would think. Master Clairvoyant was unparalleled in the art of divination, but there were some things that even Master Clairvoyant could not predict. Leaving the outer sea, Longao was not in a hurry because he only needed to return to the Dragon Valley within a month. Inside the Dragon Seal space. Xiling, apart from the reincarnation sword technique, can I practice other Starry Sky martial arts? Longao was still unwilling to give up. His cultivation had reached the peak of the ultimate god realm. Once he practiced Starry Sky martial arts, it would be easy for him to kill an emperor god. You can't. Xiling glared at him fiercely and said, Although I don't know where your reincarnation sword technique came from, I can tell you that the reincarnation sword technique and the 9 revolving reincarnation sword that you practice are the best among all the Starry Sky martial arts and cultivation techniques. Longao did not tell Xiling about the mysterious young man. If you practice Starry Sky martial arts now, you'll only be courting death. Instead of that, you might as well practice the reincarnation sword technique. When your cultivation has officially broken through to the Starry Sky realm, I'll teach you Starry Sky martial arts. Longao looked at Long Fu beside him. Before Longao could speak, Long Fu said, Master, please forgive me for not being able to help you. Regardless of whether it was Zi Ling or Long Fu, they both chose to reject without hesitation. If that was the case, even Longao could not do anything. Only the two of them knew Starry Sky martial arts. Even if he forced them, it would be useless as long as they did not agree to teach him. However, Longao was not unhappy at all. As Xiling had said, the reincarnation sword technique was so powerful that even an emperor god would not be able to resist it when combined with the reincarnation sword. As for whether it could contend against a Nirvana realm warrior, it was unknown. Although he did not know, Longao was sure of one thing. Once he used the reincarnation sword and the reincarnation sword technique, even a Nirvana realm warrior would not be able to lock him down with the forbidden power and the domain of heaven and earth. In this way, even if he could not defeat a Nirvana realm warrior, at least a Nirvana realm warrior would not be able to stop him. Long Fu, how long will it take to extract Tian Chen's inheritance? In addition to the Starry Sky martial arts, Longao was most concerned about this matter. The Starry Sky inheritance was something that warriors dreamed of obtaining. Longao was almost certain that no matter who it was, as long as they devoured the Starry Sky inheritance, they would definitely break through to the Starry Sky realm in the future. It was just a matter of time. In other words, if someone with good talent devoured the Starry Sky inheritance, it would take them a few years to reach the Starry Sky realm. If someone with bad talent or an ordinary person devoured the Starry Sky inheritance, it would take them more than a decade, or even 100 years. Longao had already decided that when he returned to the Dragon Valley this time, he would find someone with good talent to inherit the Starry Sky inheritance. The faster the inheritance, the more help it would be to the Dragon Valley. As the crisis grew, the Dragon Valley could not wait any longer. Master, I will refine Tian Chen's inheritance as soon as possible. After I process it, I believe that after someone devours it, their refining speed will increase by several times. Those with good talent will be able to officially use the Starry Sky inheritance to break through to the Starry Sky realm in 3 years. Long Fu, can it be done without origin energy? All the origin energy of the Tianwu continent had been sealed by the heavenly Tao. At this time, it would not be easy to find it. If he delayed his breakthrough because of this, he would regret it. Chapter 1559. Yes. He was overjoyed. Master, the Starry Sky inheritance contains the power of origin. When you devour the Starry Sky inheritance, the power of origin will automatically enter your body. I see. If that's the case, then there's no problem. Xiling, I want to ask you a question. Xiling's face was cold, but Longao was used to it. As for Long Fu, he didn't waste any time. He walked to the side and continued to refine Tian Chen's Starry Sky inheritance. Xiling, if I devour the Starry Sky inheritance and break through to the Starry Sky realm, will it be difficult to continue to break through? This was what Longao was most concerned about. It's 100 times more difficult than producing the power of origin to break through to the Starry Sky realm. 100 times. A warrior's cultivation was against the natural order. To break through to the next level was as difficult as ascending to the sky. If it was 100 times more difficult than a normal breakthrough, it was hard to imagine how difficult it was to break through to the second level from the first level of the Starry Sky realm. Longao, I know what you want to ask. Xiling pulled out a table and 2 chairs out of nowhere. There were also drinks on the table. The two sat down face to face. For example, if you devour the Starry Sky inheritance and break through to the Starry Sky realm, there's only one way to break through to a higher level quickly. What way? He told Longao directly that Xiling's method was definitely not simple. Or else everyone would choose to devour the Starry Sky inheritance instead of producing the power of origin by themselves. Continue to devour. What do you mean by continue to devour? Longao seemed to have thought of something. His face was full of shock. Nodding, Xiling said with a smile, It seems that you've already guessed it. Just as you guessed, for example, if you want to continue to break through to the first level of the Starry Sky realm, and quickly, you have to devour a higher level Starry Sky inheritance. This method was completely suicidal. If you were lucky, you could get the Starry Sky inheritance. If you were unlucky, you might not get a higher level Starry Sky inheritance in your life. Killing a high level Starry Sky cultivator, no one would do such a thing unless they were out of their minds. The way of heaven is the power of origin produced by oneself. Otherwise, it's as hard as climbing to the sky to reach the 8th level. So that was the case. If possible, Longao certainly did not want any of his family members to devour the Starry Sky inheritance. However, Longao knew better than anyone else that it was impossible for his family to break through to the star state with their talents. It was impossible. In that case, since he knew it was impossible, he might as well devour the Starry Sky inheritance as soon as possible. Longao had made up his mind. No matter who devoured the Starry Sky inheritance, he would not hesitate to help the other party continue to devour and advance to a higher level of the Starry Sky realm. Master, you've successfully broken through the peak ultimate God realm. You're only one step away from the Emperor God realm. He nodded. Longao didn't know why Long Fu suddenly mentioned this question. Could it be that Long Fu had a way to help him break through? With the sacred desolation body, there should have been no bottlenecks when breaking through realms. However, as his realm continued to increase, Longao discovered a problem. The higher his realm, the more power he needed to break through. Too much power was needed to break through from the ultimate God realm to the Emperor God realm. Otherwise, it wouldn't take him so long to break through. Long Fu, if you have something to say, just say it. I'm currently refining the starry sky inheritance. I'll think of a way to force the excess energy from the refinement into your body. When the time comes, with Miss Violet's spirit's help, it shouldn't be a problem for you to break through to the God Emperor realm. Damn. He was pleasantly surprised. Longao certainly wouldn't object. After all, after breaking through to the Emperor God realm, he was only one step away from the Nirvana realm. The last step, just one step. In the following time, Longao hurried along and cultivated. After about 10 days, Long Fu successfully refined the starry sky inheritance. The speed of devouring was more than 3 times faster. Not only that, Long Fu processed the remaining power into something Longao could devour. With the help of Xiling, he began to advance to the Emperor God realm. The level 3 divine territory in his body began to slowly transform into a level 4 divine territory. If it wasn't for Long Fu and Xiling's help, Longao would need a long time to break through from the ultimate God realm to the Emperor God realm. Even with the Sacred Desolation physique, it wouldn't be an easy task. Not to mention, the Sacred Desolation physique had its advantages and disadvantages. Without a huge amount of power, the Sacred Desolation physique would become an obstacle to a warrior's advancement. Back then, in the Long family of the Scarlet Fire Town, if not for suddenly obtaining the Dragon Seal, Longao's cultivation would have stagnated precisely because he possessed the desolate holy body. For a full 10 years, if not for persevering, it was believed that Longao would still be a waste in the Scarlet Fire Town. The Sacred Desolation physique was the #1 useless physique in the world. It was also the #1 divine physique in the world. 10 days later, Longao was pleasantly surprised as he felt the surging level 4 divine territory circulating in his body. He was really lucky this time. Not only did he obtain the Starry Sky inheritance, but he also used the extra power of the Starry Sky inheritance to raise his cultivation from the ultimate God realm to the Emperor God realm. Longao, although your cultivation has broken through to the peak Emperor God realm, it hasn't stabilized yet. I have a suggestion. You should use a year to stabilize your cultivation. By then, it will be easier for you to break through. Could he wait for a year? It would be fine if he couldn't break through, but if he could, why wouldn't he? In any case, he had a 1-year agreement with the 3 super forces. If he could break through to the Nirvana realm within a year, not only himself, but also the Dragon Valley would be protected. Before Longao could speak, Xiling seemed to have guessed his thoughts. Longao, there are still 10 months left to your 1-year agreement with the 3 super forces. After 10 months, I will do my best to help you break through to the Nirvana realm. Thank you? Since Xiling had said so, what else could Longao say? He firmly believed that Xiling wouldn't harm him. 10 months to stabilize his cultivation in the Emperor God realm wasn't a bad thing. As Xiling said, the longer he stabilized his cultivation, the easier it would be for him to break through in the future. Moreover, there would be great benefits after breaking through to the Nirvana realm. Since things had already come to this, Longao didn't continue to dwell on it. Instead, he hurried on with his journey because there were only 10 days left. If he couldn't make it back in time, then the Starry Sky inheritance would be wasted. How could Longao let go of the peak Emperor God realm's inheritance that he obtained with great difficulty? Chapter 1560. 9 States Continent. In the Dragon Valley. After the 3 super forces attacked the Dragon Valley to no avail, the Dragon Sect's position in the 9 States Continent became more and more stable. It was a strange thing. Under normal circumstances, with the strength of the 3 superpowers, the 9 continents should choose to submit to them. But what happened? Everyone in the 9 States Continent, including all the sects and clans, only followed the Dragon Sect. The Dragon Sect was developing faster and faster, but a month ago, The dragon sect's disciples were suddenly assassinated, causing everyone in the Dragon Valley to panic. Only Longao and Longao knew about this. Longao's sudden return caused the Dragon Valley to be filled with joy. In the backyard. In the pavilion. Ao, you're finally back. Recently, someone has been assassinating our dragon sect's disciples. The disciples outside have all been killed. The Purple Thunder sect and the Black Heaven sect. Longao knew that this matter was related to Yi Warren of the Purple Thunder sect and the Black Heaven sect. With his relationship with the Purple Thunder ancestor, the Purple Thunder ancestor wouldn't have to do this if they wanted to deal with him. Because of this, Longao was sure that this matter was related to Yi Warren alone, and had nothing to do with the Purple Thunder sect or the Purple Thunder ancestor. Other than Yi Warren, there was only the Black Heaven sect. Longao said coldly, I'm here to see what the Black Heaven sect and Yi Warren are up to. Since they want to play, I'll play with them. With the two level 2 Nirvana Divine Beasts, the Blood Spider and the Blood Praying Mantis, as long as it wasn't a Nirvana Divine Beast or a Nirvana Divine Beast, the Dragon Valley would be safe. Ao, be careful. Ao smiled. Grandfather, this time I went to the outer sea and entered the astral purgatory. Not only did I successfully obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance, I even brought back 2 level 2 Nirvana Divine Beasts. Longao was overjoyed. The current Longao was different from the past. A Martial Dao Peak expert was the strongest existence in the Tianwu continent. Longao never thought that his grandson could obtain the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. If that was the case, wouldn't Ao become a Martial Dao Peak expert in the future? 2 Nirvana Divine Beasts. Ao. Grandpa, I'm fine. How could Longao not know what his grandfather was about to say? There was no doubt that if nothing unexpected happened, his grandfather would definitely tell him to be more careful. Grandpa, there's something I want to discuss with you, but don't leak this out. He was very curious. When Longao saw that his grandson was so serious, he knew that what Ao was about to say was definitely not simple. Don't worry. I know what to do. Longao was very confident in his grandfather. Grandpa, as I said earlier, I obtained the Starry Sky inheritance in the Outer Sea Star Purgatory, which is the Peak Martial Dao inheritance. However, I don't intend to devour the Peak Martial Dao inheritance. Ao, why is that? Longao was shocked to the extreme when he heard that his grandson did not devour the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. He knew very well what it meant if his grandson devoured the Martial Dao Peak inheritance. If there were no accidents, his son would be able to reach the pinnacle of martial arts after devouring the inheritance of the pinnacle of martial arts. Why would his grandson choose to give up such a good opportunity? Grandpa, there are some things that you won't understand, but I've already made up my mind. Longao looked deeply at his grandson in front of him, and sighed in the end. He knew his grandson's character very well. As long as Ao had decided on something, it was almost impossible to change his mind. Ao, you want to give the Martial Dao Peak inheritance to others? Yes, Grandpa. Think about it. Who is the most suitable person to inherit the Martial Dao Peak inheritance among all the people in our family? Longao was also very selfish. Everyone in the dragon sect, including the people in the family, and the people outside. If he had to choose, Longao would choose his own people without hesitation, which meant the people in the family. It would be best if it was his brothers, sisters, and uncles. How could Longao not know about Ao's intention? He lowered his head and started to ponder. After a while, Longao raised his head and said, Ao, what do you think of Inger? Big brother? Longao smiled. Because among all the brothers and sisters, Longying's talent was the best, and he was also the one who broke through to the Supreme Dao realm the fastest. Now, Longying was already a true Supreme Dao warrior, and a man-god warrior. Grandpa, I'll have to trouble you to call Big Brother over. I have something I need to talk to him about. Longao knew why Ao was looking for Inger. Without the slightest hesitation, he sent people to Longying's residence to summon her. A few minutes later, Grandpa, seventh brother, what do you need me for? Longing was very curious. She didn't know why her seventh brother was looking for her at this time. Or, if there's anything, just telling her. Nodding, Longao smiled. Big brother, as your cultivation base continues to increase, you should know about the Martial Dao Peak. I know. Longing was even more curious now. He didn't know why his seventh brother had suddenly brought up this matter. After all, this matter was related to the peak of the martial path. It wasn't just him. Any martial artist should know about it. The peak of the martial path was the strongest in the martial heaven continent. The Martial Dao Peak experts. Longao then roughly explained the Martial Dao Peak experts, as well as the Starry Sky realm. Whether it was Longao or Longing, either of them had imagined that the legendary peak of the Martial Dao Peak experts was actually the Starry Sky realm. Big brother, when I went to the Outer Seas Star Purgatory, my luck was pretty good. I obtained a Starry Sky inheritance, which is the peak of the Martial Dao Peak experts' inheritance. However, I'm not going to devour it. Grandfather and I both want you to devour the Starry Sky inheritance. Furthermore, I've already dealt with it. Once you devour it, if nothing unexpected happens, you'll become a Starry Sky cultivator in 3 to 10 years. Longing was a bit dumbfounded. Disbelief filled her face. Longing had never imagined that her seventh brother wouldn't let her devour the Starry Sky inheritance. Instead, he wanted her to devour the Starry Sky inheritance. Looking at her seventh brother's expression, he wasn't joking. Seventh brother, forgive me for being blunt, but why don't you devour the Starry Sky inheritance yourself? Big brother, I want to reproduce my own core energy. But don't worry, even if you devour the Starry Sky inheritance and become a first-rank Starry Sky cultivator in the future, I'll think of a way for you to keep devouring it. Big brother, your current mission is to break through as quickly as possible and protect the Dragon Valley. Danger lurked everywhere. If the Dragon Valley had a Starry Sky cultivator guarding it, then let alone the 3 superpowers, even if the 10 direction cauldrons came, the Dragon Valley wouldn't care about them. Chapter 1561. How could Longing not know the danger of Dragon Valley and her seventh brother? They were surrounded by danger. Inger Senseo has said so, why don't you accept it? After thinking about it. In the end, Longing nodded and said, Thank you, seventh brother. I will do my best to refine the Starry Sky inheritance. In the following time. After receiving the Starry Sky inheritance, Longing immediately found a secret place and began to refine the Starry Sky inheritance in seclusion. She hoped to finish refining the Starry Sky inheritance as soon as possible and break through to the Starry Sky cultivation realm. No one else knew about the Starry Sky inheritance, including Longao's parents. In Longao and Longhao's opinion, the fewer people who knew about the Starry Sky inheritance, the better it would be for Dragon Valley and Longing. The Blood-Red Spider and the Blood-Red Mantis, 2 level 2 Nirvana divine beasts, were guarding Dragon Valley. Longao did not choose to hide this matter. Instead, he publicized it. Longao's intention was simple. If other forces knew that there were 2 level 2 Nirvana divine beasts guarding Dragon Valley, it would serve as a deterrent. The effect was as expected. The news of Dragon Valley having 2 level 2 Nirvana divine beasts guarding it had spread throughout the Jiuzhou continent, and even the Tianwu continent. It was also because of this that Dragon Sect would become the true overlord of the Jiuzhou continent from now on. Other than the Great Tripod. Even among second-grade forces, the Dragon Sect was considered to be one of the top existences. It could even be ranked in the top 3. The entire continent was shocked. Long Family, Martial Artists Alliance, and Wanshou Sect. When they heard the news, they were angrier, more depressed, and more regretful than the other. However, due to the deterrence of the divine mathematician, the 3 superforces could only wait for the 1-year agreement. However, the 3 superforces were not willing to give up so easily. Although they could not take action, Purple Thunder Sect and Black Heaven Sect could. However, what made the three super forces very depressed was that Purple Thunder Sect suddenly chose to withdraw, leaving only Black Heaven Sect. Black Heaven Sect. Longao returned this time mainly to deal with Black Heaven Sect. This battle was unavoidable. Longao brought the two level 2 Nirvana Divine Beasts and the Corpse Demon Army and rushed towards the Black Heaven Sect. Not only that, Longao announced to the world that the Black Heaven Sect had assassinated the disciples of the Dragon Valley for no reason, and this was unforgivable. In this way, it was as if Longao had become a righteous man who was going to crusade against the Black Heaven Sect. As for whether or not the Black Heaven Sect was in cahoots with the three super forces, Longao did not mention it. Even a smart person would be able to guess what was going on. Without the three super forces, why would the Black Heaven Sect assassinate the disciples of the Dragon Valley for no reason unless they had nothing better to do? Apart from the three super forces, everyone else chose to support Longao and the Dragon Valley. If Longao didn't do anything, he would be looked down upon by others. A great battle was about to break out. In everyone's opinion, this battle was unavoidable. The Black Heaven Sect was one of the 10 sections. If the Black Heaven Sect chose to avoid the battle, would they not be laughed at by the world? Would the Black Heaven Sect do such a foolish thing? Just when everyone chose to believe that this battle was unavoidable, the result made everyone's jaws drop. Not only did the Black Heaven Sect not fight, but they even announced to the world that this was all their fault. They announced to the world that they were apologizing. As one of the 10 sects, the Black Heaven Sect was completely humiliating themselves by doing this. In this way, the Black Heaven Sect was utterly humiliated, and no one could understand why the Black Heaven Sect would do this. In terms of strength, the Black Heaven Sect was far more powerful than the Dragon Valley. If a battle were to break out, the Dragon Valley would definitely not be a match for the Black Heaven Sect. If it was in the past, Longao would definitely not let this matter go. The Black Heaven Sect had assassinated his disciples for no reason, and if this matter was not resolved, how could he and the Dragon Valley maintain their standing? However, the situation was completely different now, and Longao was not reckless at all. He was now enemies with the three super forces, and a great battle would break out in a year's time. At this time, he should be prepared to face the battle in a year's time. Going head-to-head with the Black Heaven Sect would not benefit himself, or the Dragon Valley at all. After accepting the Black Heaven Sect's apology, Longao led his army back to the Dragon Valley. The three super forces were extremely depressed when they heard the news, and they immediately sent people to the Black Heaven Sect to ask what had happened. Unfortunately, the Black Heaven Sect refused to see them. Both the Black Heaven Sect and the Purple Thunder Sect had chosen to give up, and the three super forces could not do anything. Could they just watch as Longao continued to develop his strength and the Dragon Valley's forces? If it was someone else, the three super forces would definitely not care about them. Longao was too unpredictable, and no one knew how far Longao would develop in a year's time. Dragon Valley, a remote place behind the mountains. Longao sat quietly on the ground with his hands facing the sky. Although his cultivation had broken through from the peak ultimate god realm to the peak god realm, according to Xiling, he would need 10 months to stabilize his peak god realm. 10 months later, he would be at the final stage of the breakthrough. 2 hours later, Longao stood up with the reincarnation sword in his hand. After a few days of practicing the reincarnation sword technique, Longao found that he was gradually getting into the basics of the reincarnation sword technique. The reincarnation sword technique was divided into several stages, and Longao was only at the first stage, which was also the most basic stage. Even so, Longao was still amazed by the power of the reincarnation sword technique. Even the basic stage of the reincarnation sword she could easily break through the domain of heaven and earth and forbidden energy. Let's see how powerful you are! Longao looked deeply at the endless forest in front of him and roared. He channeled all the energy in his body into his hands and circulated the reincarnation sword technique. With a whoosh, the reincarnation sword chi shot out at lightning speed. Rumble. At the same time, the endless forest in front of him was sliced open by the reincarnation sword chi. Everywhere it passed, it turned into ashes. Looking at the scene in front of him, Longao was dumbfounded and seemed to be in disbelief. After only a few days of practice, his reincarnation sword chi seemed to have become much stronger. It was as if the reincarnation sword technique was prepared for him. A purple light flashed and Xiling's figure suddenly appeared. Xiling was a little surprised and said with emotion, "No wonder it's the supreme sword technique of the reincarnation clan. Just this power alone." "Xiling, did you just say that the reincarnation sword technique came from the reincarnation clan?" He was very surprised. "Longao, actually you have already guessed it. Why do you ask so much? The reincarnation sword technique is the supreme sword technique of the reincarnation clan. The reincarnation sword in your hand should be the supreme divine sword of the reincarnation clan. I believe you have personally tested the power of the combination of the two." Chapter 1562. Longao had personally witnessed the power of the reincarnation sword and reincarnation sword technique. Its power was amazing. Thinking about it, he felt relieved. The reincarnation sword light could even break the forbidden power and the domain of heaven and earth. It was easy to imagine how powerful the reincarnation sword light was. As for the reincarnation sword technique, Longao had already guessed it. "Longao, the reincarnation sword technique you are now practicing is only at the initial stage. As your cultivation and strength continue to improve, the reincarnation sword technique will become more and more powerful." He nodded. Longao was very confident about the reincarnation sword light. "Longao, your reincarnation sword light can break the forbidden power and the domain of heaven and earth. But don't be careless. Nirvana realm warriors are not existences you can compete with." "I understand." The gap between the Emperor God realm and the Nirvana realm was too big. It was difficult to make up for the gap between realms with other things. Looking at the reincarnation sword in his hand, Longao said with a little sigh, "If the reincarnation sword can be divided into two, then the reincarnation avatar and I can each have one." The reincarnation avatar's strength was needless to say. If the reincarnation avatar could get the reincarnation sword and combine the two, the power would be even more terrifying. But this was just a thought. It was impossible to come true. "Longao, you have the reincarnation sword technique and the reincarnation sword. There is hope for me and my sister's revenge. Xiling, you and Bai Ling have never mentioned to me." Longao did not finish his words, but the meaning in his words was already very clear. "It's not time yet." This sentence again. Every time he heard Xiling and Long Fu say this, Longao felt a headache. Although he knew what they said was right, he still felt a little uncomfortable. "When will it be time?" "When you officially step into the 7th Starry Sky Cultivator Realm." 7th Starry Sky Cultivator Realm? Although Xiling did not state it clearly, Longao had already guessed it. If there were no accidents, Xiling and Bai Ling's opponents would most likely be Grade 8 Starry Sky Cultivators, or even Grade 9 Starry Sky Cultivators. If that was really the case, this matter would indeed be somewhat troublesome. Since Xiling didn't want to talk about it, Longao didn't ask further. However, Longao was very clear about one thing. Whether it was Xiling and Bai Ling's worries or his own matters, the first thing he needed was strength. Everything else was nonsense. "What happened? What happened?" He shook his head. Longao's expression was very ugly. He didn't know why, but he suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. It was as if someone was cutting his flesh with a knife. The bad premonition was getting stronger and stronger. "Longao, guard your core." Is it because you broke through too quickly and haven't completely stabilized your foundation? Is there a backlash? He didn't rule out this possibility. For some reason, Longao didn't feel that it was because of this. Longao, come out. Suddenly, an urgent voice came from the sky above the Dragon Valley. Hades? Hearing the voice, Longao was a little surprised. He didn't know why Hades was looking for him at this time. Although Hades was Yi Yin's master, there was a big grudge between them. Hades had sent people to kill him before. If it weren't for his good luck, he would have become a corpse by now. Could it be that something happened to Yi Yin? Longao's heart became more and more uncomfortable. He immediately got up. In the backyard of the Dragon Valley. Hades, what are you here for this time? Not friends, just enemies. Hades' sudden appearance, except for Yi Yin's matter, Longao didn't know what else Hades could be here for. Longao, something happened to Yi Yin. His heart thumped. As expected, the bad premonition and Hades' sudden appearance meant that something really had happened to Yi Yin. Longao couldn't wait any longer. He immediately asked, Hades, what happened to Yi Yin? His three confidants were Yi Yin, Aoxue, and Bai Ling. Now that Aoxue was in the Phoenix race, whether it was good or bad was unknown. Bai Ling was also unconscious. No one knew when Bai Ling would wake up. As for Yi Yin, although her cultivation base had officially broken through to the Nirvana realm, the martial heaven continent was filled with experts. As the saying went, there was always a mountain beyond a mountain, a sky beyond a sky. No one could be sure that Yi Yin's cultivation base would always be smooth sailing. Longao, since things have already reached this point, I won't hide it from you. Fuck. Longao cursed inwardly. In order to help Yi Yin break through to a higher realm, I brought Yi Yin to the western regions. We went to the place where I went to gain experience. According to my calculations, once Yi Yin entered that place, her strength would increase. Longao didn't say anything. He was very clear that at this time, he had to remain calm. After all, being impulsive wouldn't solve any problems. It would only interfere with his judgment. Yi Yin's talent and luck are very good. After entering that place, she smoothly broke through. Now Yi Yin has already reached the unity of heaven and man realm. She's only one step away from reaching the heaven-multiplying realm. So what? Longao was furious to the extreme. He cursed Hades inwardly. How could Longao not know what Hades was thinking? Even if Hades' intentions were good, he had been too impatient. Now, although Yi Yin's cultivation base had broken through, she had encountered danger. If that's the case, what happened to Yi Yin? Although Yi Yin safely left that place, her soul was trapped inside. I didn't notice it at the time. This was troublesome. Where is Yi Yin now? The western regions. Take me there. All right, we'll leave immediately. Without the slightest hesitation, Longao immediately got up and left. However, before he left, he instructed a few things, especially the matter of Big Brother obtaining the Starry Sky inheritance. After all, if this matter were to spread out, he believed that the 10 cauldrons would be jealous and snatch it. If that was the case, things would be troublesome. Aor, you have to be careful. Don't worry, grandfather. I'll leave the Dragon Valley to you. Don't worry. Without lingering, Longao followed Hades into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the two of them disappeared without a trace, turning into 2 black dots. Longao heaved a deep sigh as he looked at Longao's figure that had already disappeared. Because Aor's rise, it seemed that he had not really rested for a day. He was always in danger. Now that he had left, no one knew whether he would come back or not. Even if he had full confidence in Longao was still incomparably worried in his heart. He was afraid that his grandson would have a problem. Aor, you have to come back safely. After Longao left, Longao not only continued to block the news of Longing obtaining the inheritance of the Starry Sky, but also prepared to quickly develop the strength of the Dragon Valley. After all, the Black Heaven sect and Purple Thunder sect no longer dared to assassinate the disciples of the Dragon Valley. Chapter 1563. The Sky Martial Continent was divided into 5 major continents. They were the Eastern Region Continent, Western Region Continent, Southern Sea Continent, Northern Plains Continent, and Middle Sky Martial Continent. Among the 5 major continents, the Sky Martial Continent was the strongest, followed by the Southern Sea Continent. The Eastern Region Continent was the weakest, and the Northern Plains Continent was the strongest. As for the Western Region Continent, it was neither too strong nor too weak. The Western Region Continent did not have a large population. Anxious for Yuyin's safety, Longao and Hades' speed soared to the extreme. With their speed, it would take them dozens of days to reach the Western Region Continent from the 9 Region Continent. Could Yuyin wait? Even if Yuyin could wait, Longao could not. He had already broken through to the Peak God Emperor realm. If he chose to use the spacetime wheel now, even if there was a backlash, it would not kill him. Fortunately, he had Hades' help. Hades was in the Nirvana realm, and his cultivation had reached the Nirvana realm. He was only 1 step away from breaking through to the Nirvana rebirth realm. Hades, with our speed, it will take us at least 10 days to reach the Western Region Continent. What do you want? There was no teleportation array from the 9 Region Continent to the Western Region Continent. I hope you can help me. We can reach the Western Region Continent in about 2 hours. Hades seemed to be very surprised. With the help of the Underworld God's strength and the spacetime wheel, Longao and the Underworld God arrived at the Western Region Continent in a few seconds, let alone 2 hours. Longao, I have to admit that I underestimated you. What do you mean? Longao's thoughts were all on Yuyin. If it was before, he would have guessed Hades' meaning. In just a few years, you were able to reach this realm. Your talent is beyond my imagination. Longao smiled, but did not say anything. Talent? Was it possible for a martial artist to rely on talent alone? Longao was very clear that the reason why he could achieve what he had today in just a few years was because of his own talent, life and death experiences, as well as opportunities. Not one of them could be missing. Ever since Hades sensed Longao's cultivation, he was truly shocked to the extreme. Peak God Emperor realm. He was only a step away from breaking through to the Nirvana realm. With such talent and potential, he was unparalleled in the world. However, Longao obviously didn't want to talk about it, so Hades didn't ask any more questions. The more Longao acted this way, the more confident Hades felt. At the very least, it could be seen that Longao was sincere to Yuyin. Hades, where is Yuyin now? Come with me. In a small city. The courtyard was surrounded by the domain of heaven and earth. Ordinary people could not enter at all. Moreover, there were several supreme divine beasts guarding it. Looking at Yuyin lying on the bed, Longao's face was extremely gloomy. He could clearly sense that Yuyin's divine soul was damaged. Even if she was not dead, it was almost impossible for her to wake up unless he could find the place where her divine soul was. Hades, what is going on? The underworld god's expression was also a little ugly. He said helplessly. According to my guess, if there were no accidents, Yuyin would have entered that place smoothly. It was all because of the inheritance of darkness. Dark inheritance? Could it be that Yuyin had obtained the dark inheritance? Hades seemed to have guessed Longao's thoughts. Before he could speak, he continued, The dark inheritance is the inheritance that all 10 sides want to obtain. However, for countless years, no one has been able to obtain it except for Yuyin. Longao did not speak. He just listened quietly. Yuyin had obtained the dark inheritance. Under normal circumstances, she should have broken through smoothly. However, after entering that place this time, the dark inheritance in Yuyin's body has disappeared. What do you mean? What I mean is very simple. Yuyin's divine soul should have been detained by the dark world. We must find Yuyin's divine soul as soon as possible. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. Without Hades saying more, Longao naturally knew the seriousness of the matter. Hades, I want to know, what is the dark inheritance? The Nirvana inheritance? Or the starry sky inheritance? Longao guessed that the dark inheritance that Yuyin had obtained was not the starry sky inheritance, but the so-called nirvana inheritance. You guessed wrong. The dark inheritance is not the inheritance of strength, but the inheritance of the dark world. Yuyin obtained the inheritance to open the dark world and enter it. She obtained the dark world's approval and her strength soared. Back then, the Nether God had also obtained the inheritance of darkness and entered the world of darkness. It was precisely because of this that the Nether God's strength had soared. In just a few short decades, the Nether God had reached the Nirvana stage. What is the situation in the dark world? The dark world is just a tribe. When I entered the dark world, I found that the dark world did not only have the Nirvana rebirth inheritance, but also the peak of the martial path. I did this in hopes that Yuyin could obtain the peak of the martial path. At that time, once Yuyin's cultivation base breaks through to the peak of the martial path, she would be unstoppable in the martial heaven continent. Although he was shocked, Longao naturally didn't have the slightest doubt. He had never imagined that the dark world would have the starry sky inheritance. It was no wonder Hades was acting like this. There are almost no experts in the dark world. When I entered the dark world, the strongest expert I found was an expert who had comprehended the laws of heaven and earth. After a few decades, at most, an expert who had comprehended the laws of heaven and earth would appear. But even so, obtaining the dark world's inheritance is extremely dangerous. The slightest mistake could lead to eternal damnation. I still don't understand. Since Yuyin has already smoothly broken through, even if she didn't obtain the dark world's inheritance, why would Yuyin's soul be captured? Longao was very curious. After all, there was only one way to retrieve Yuyin's soul. That was to personally enter the dark world. No matter what happened, no matter what danger he encountered, he had to do it. Otherwise, Yuyin would continue to be unconscious. According to my guess, Yuyin should have already seen the peak of the martial path. But the result was that not only did she not obtain the dark world's inheritance, but it also silently captured her soul. Otherwise, how could Yuyin not know about this after leaving the dark world for so long? I understand. Longao, I've already entered the dark world. There's no way for me to get close to the peak of the martial path. So you have to enter the dark world. That way, the chances of retrieving Yuyin's soul will be much higher. However, I have to warn you that once you enter the dark world, it will be extremely dangerous. It can be said that you have a 90% chance of dying. Chapter 1564. Longao had already guessed it. If Hades could enter the dark world, then he wouldn't have to go all the way to the Jojo continent to find him. I choose to enter the dark world. Without even thinking about it, without even the slightest hesitation, Longao had already agreed. He was a little surprised. From the underworld god's point of view, Longao would definitely not choose to enter the world of darkness after he mentioned the dangers of the world of darkness. He was very impressed. He was very satisfied. Longao, I already know about the relationship between you and Yuyin. After this incident, I will fully support you. What about the Martial Artists Alliance? Longao wasn't surprised at all. After all, Hades was a member of the Martial Artists Alliance. You don't have to worry about it. He shrugged helplessly. Hades didn't want to say more, and Longao didn't ask more. In this situation, Longao was most worried about Yuyin. The most important thing now was to enter the dark world as soon as possible, find the dark inheritance, and find Yuyin's divine soul. Where is the dark world? Longao, in your current situation, you can't enter the dark world at all. He was very depressed. He couldn't enter the dark world, and Hades couldn't do anything either. Then wouldn't Yuyin be doomed? As if he could read Longao's mind, Hades thought for a while and said, Later, I will refine the dark inheritance that Yuyin obtained into a dark energy shield. You can use this dark energy shield to enter the dark world smoothly. You should have said so earlier. You scared me to death. In the following time, Hades began to refine the dark energy shield, and Longao stayed by Yi Yin's side, quietly guarding her. In the Western continent, there were countless sects and families. However, the overall strength of the Western region's continent was far inferior to the Zhongtian martial continent, but it was far superior to the 9 provinces continent. The continent of the 9 continents didn't have any divine Dao martial artists holding down the fort, but the continent of the West was different. Not only did it have divine Dao martial artists holding down the fort, it even had supreme divine Dao martial artists holding down the fort. As for rebirth realm martial artists, there wasn't a single one. You could say that the Sky Martial Continent was one of the 5 major continents. Other than the Sky Martial Continent and the Outer Sea, the other 3 major continents did not have any Nirvana realm martial artists. Longao's current cultivation had already reached the peak God-Emperor realm. With such powerful strength, he could do whatever he wanted in the Western continent. He was invincible in the Western continent. As for the world of darkness, according to Hades, the strongest warrior in the dark realm could only sense the heavens and the earth. At most, he could reach the unity of heaven and man Phoenix clan. Within the lotus flower cave, Yeshua gently stroked her belly with a gentle look on her face. Mother, is there any news about my situation in the clan? Aoshua said with a smile as she watched her mother step into the cave. However, she felt even more depressed. For more than a year, there was still no movement from the child in her belly. Under normal circumstances, no matter if it was a human or a phoenix, it would take 10 months to conceive. She was the only one who had exceeded 10 months and still showed no signs of giving birth. She felt helpless. Luing said dejectedly, "The patriarch and the other elders are trying to think of a way, but until now, there is still no way." Aoshue, your belly shouldn't be a bad thing. Not a bad thing? She was pregnant for 10 months but still didn't give birth. Even her belly wasn't that big. Was this not a bad thing? Aoshue, although your talent and physique are different, your cultivation shouldn't have increased so quickly. Mother, what do you mean? The patriarch, and the other elders have already discussed your situation. Under normal circumstances, even with your talent and physique, you should be able to reach the divine Dao realm at most. That's already very good. Unless you are enlightened, you won't be able to improve too quickly. Aoshua didn't say anything. Her face was filled with curiosity. She didn't know what her mother meant. Aoshua, what I mean is actually very simple. Because of your child, your cultivation speed has increased by more than 100 times. In just 2 years, you have already reached the Divine Emperor realm. If there are no accidents, you can officially break through to the Nirvana realm in 3 months. Among Longao's 3 female confidants, except for Bai Ling who had not recovered from her injuries, the other 2, Aoshua and Yuyin, had already reached the Nirvana realm. If this news were to spread, would it shock the world? Would Aoshua care? Aoshua only smiled indifferently. She didn't feel the slightest bit of happiness because she was about to break through to the Nirvana realm. Now she only cared about her child. Even if she didn't improve for the rest of her life, it wouldn't be a problem. Aoshua wasn't a fool. How could she not know that the rapid increase in her cultivation was definitely related to her child? Because to her cultivation, there didn't seem to be any bottlenecks to speak of. As a matter of course, she advanced triumphantly all the way. A mother's love was the greatest love in the world. Lu Ying had already guessed her daughter's thoughts when she saw the expression on Aoshua's face. She sighed deeply in her heart. Poor mothers. They could sacrifice everything for their children. Not to mention their cultivation, they wouldn't even bat an eyelid if they had to sacrifice their own lives. Mother, what should I do now? The clan leader and the other elders are still thinking of a way. However, Aoshua, the only thing you need to do now is enter the Phoenix Pool as soon as possible. Perhaps when you recover your half-true form, you will give birth. Aoshua had the purest bloodline in her body. Once she entered the phoenix pool and awakened the bloodline in her body, she would be able to transform into a phoenix. Furthermore, she would be the strongest phoenix in the history of the Phoenix clan. This was the real reason why the Phoenix clan treated Aoshua so well. However, Aoshua had always been unwilling to enter the phoenix pool. The reason was very simple. She was afraid of harming her child. If it wasn't for her child's help in breaking through, Aoshua was almost certain that the Phoenix clan would have already made a move on her child. If her child lived, she would live. If her child died, she would die too. Aoshua had already thought about this matter and made the same decision. It was just that Luing and the others didn't know about it. Mother, make the arrangements for me. After 3 months, when my cultivation officially breaks through to the Nirvana realm, I will enter the Phoenix pool. I hope that my child can be born smoothly. If there are any accidents, I will leave with him. Leave together. Of course, Luing knew what her daughter meant. She didn't try to persuade her because Luing was very clear about her daughter's personality. Every mother would be like this. It was useless for her to say anything more. All right, Mother will make the arrangements now. Don't worry. When the time comes, the clan leader, the other elders, and Mother will protect you. There definitely won't be any problems. After speaking, Luing turned and left. In the empty cave, only Aoshua was left. Gently stroking her hair, Aoshua chuckled and said to herself, "Be good. I will definitely take you to see your father. P.S. Let everyone see Little Nine's strength. 9 chapters in a row. If you can endure, continue to endure. If you can't, continue to erupt tomorrow." Chapter 1565. Longao, the dark shield has been successfully refined. Hearing Hades's words, Longao was overjoyed. He had thought Hades would need at least 3 days to refine the dark shield. In the end, it only took the underworld god a day and a night to successfully refine the dark aura barrier. In that case, I will immediately go to the dark world. After 2 hours of general explanation, Longao could be considered to have a better understanding of the situation regarding the dark world. The dark world was located in the middle of a barren mountain. There were barren mountains on all sides. It was a desolate place. Hades, you don't have to go in with me. You stay and take care of Yuin. Although the courtyard was shrouded in the domain of heaven and earth, Longao was still worried. It was better to be safe than sorry. If something happened to Yuin, what would he do? Hades was a Nirvana realm martial artist. As long as it was not a Nirvana rebirth expert, no one in the world would be a match for Hades. Longao had never thought that Hades would be a Nirvana realm martial artist. All along, Longao had always thought that Yu Yin's master Hades was only a divine path martial artist. Hades also knew the seriousness of the matter, and also understood Longao's meaning. After thinking for a while, he said, "Well, you and I will act separately. When we enter the dark world, we must be careful. Don't act rashly." "I know." Without continuing, Longao turned and walked toward the entrance. The dark world was a legendary existence. Countless people only knew that there was the Nirvana rebirth inheritance in the dark world. Only when Hades entered the dark world, he was shocked to find that there was an inheritance at the peak of martial arts in the dark world. Ordinary people could not enter the dark world at all. In the past 10,000 years, only the underworld god and Yuin had entered the world of darkness. According to Hades, the world of darkness was a powerful tribe that had been sealed by the heavens and earth. As for what had happened, no one knew. Although Longao did not receive the darkness inheritance, his body was covered by the darkness chi shield. He smoothly stepped into the entrance. With a flash of black light, Longao's body disappeared from the entrance. The world was overcast, as if the sky was dark, and the sun was also dark. It gave people an extremely uncomfortable feeling. They were surrounded by mountain peaks and rocks. Tribe of Darkness. According to Hades' explanation, Longao knew that the true overlord of the dark world was the sealed tribe of darkness. As for the surroundings, there were mountains and rocks everywhere. There was no one in sight. As for whether there were divine beasts or not, it was unknown. If an ordinary person came in, it would take a lot of time just to find the tribe of darkness. However, now that he knew the exact location of the tribe of darkness, Longao did not hesitate and immediately rushed towards the southeast. He had to make the best use of every second. Longao did not know whether the darkness inheritance would directly devour Yin's divine soul. The longer it took, the more unfavorable it would be for Yin. The dark city was surrounded by walls, like a devouring beast. Looking at the dark city in front of him, Longao's face was indifferent, without a trace of fear. The darkness chi shield had entered his body. Longao was very clear that even if he entered the tribe of darkness now, he would probably be discovered by the tribe of darkness. It was not easy to avoid all the dangers and find the place of the darkness inheritance. What will come will come. For Yin, he would not hesitate to go through a mountain of swords or a sea of fire. If you do not leave me, I will be with you in life and death. Longao's ears were still ringing with the words Yin had said to him. This kind of lover was unswerving. Just like that. Longao finally took a step forward and walked towards the dark city in front of him. The total number of people in the tribe of darkness was less than 10,000. Until now, Longao did not know who sealed the tribe of darkness. Was it really sealed by heaven and earth? He would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. The tribe of darkness was full of mysteries. Who are you? Why are you here? A great emperor warrior guarding the gate. He seemed to be a little surprised. However, Longao's most important purpose in entering the dark world was to find Yin's divine soul and the inheritance of the dark world. As for other matters, it had nothing to do with him. I have obtained the darkness inheritance. This time, I came to find the inheritance of the dark world. Speaking the truth. According to Hades, as long as one obtains the darkness inheritance, as long as they do not leave the dark world, they would be equivalent to a member of the tribe of darkness. In this case, as long as they do not provoke the tribe of darkness or encounter those who deliberately seek trouble, they would not have the slightest trouble. But now that he thought about it, other than obtaining the darkness inheritance, no one else could enter the dark world. The seal alone was enough to destroy everything. Even a Nirvana rebirth expert could not break the seal and enter the dark world. Please come in. The two guards looked at each other and saw a trace of shock in each other's eyes. Because in the past 10,000 years, only one person had entered the tribe of darkness to search for the dark world. What happened in the past few months that caused two people to enter consecutively? Someone obtaining the darkness inheritance and entering the dark world was not a big deal in the tribe of darkness. As long as the person looking for the darkness inheritance did not cause trouble, no one would care. Nodding, Longao continued to move forward. According to Hades, the darkness inheritance was in the tribe of darkness. Back then, she found it in a daze. As for the specific location, even Hades did not know. In other words, in order to find the darkness inheritance, in addition to strength, the most important factor was luck. Otherwise, even if a Nirvana rebirth expert came in person, they might not be able to find the darkness inheritance. After entering the dark city, Longao did not immediately start looking for the darkness inheritance. Instead, he began to wander around aimlessly, looking left and right at the dark city. The dark city was similar to other cities and towns. However, it was less lively and more solemn. But after thinking about it, it was understandable. After all, the Dark Tribe had been sealed in the Dark World for many years. People had long been disappointed and even despaired. It was hard for Longao to imagine what would happen to him and his family if his dragon sect was sealed for 10,000 years. He was afraid that they would not be as good as the Dark Tribe. From another point of view, the Dark Tribe was already very good to be able to hold on for 10,000 years. Miss, quickly go back. Patriarch will blame us. Humph. Don't keep following me. Dad forces me to cultivate every day. It's so annoying. No matter what, I won't go back today. At this time, a very flirtatious young woman walked with a face full of displeasure. Behind her were two burly men with faces full of depression. P.S. Chapter 10 has been delivered. Little 9, go eat something first and continue writing. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.